Cool.
Welcome. I just absolutely screwed up all the audio there, so RIP headphone users. Watch everyone have to bump up the audio now, because now the intro's done. I thought we'd get out of the way first before we start talking. Everyone goes, all right, this is the volume, and then like they bump it up, and then it's like, RIP headphone users. But yeah, welcome to Catching Out, the big live one, the one where they go live.
The finale.
Woo! I can't believe we've actually got to it. Like, damn.
Yeah.
It's been. I want to say it happened quickly. It didn't. It's been a long year. It's been a long year.
We've been struggling.
Been reflecting today.
Euro seems like a long time ago. When you really think about it, Euro seems like a fucking long time ago.
4 scoring 7 years ago.
Oh god. But yeah, welcome to Catching Out Pod. Yeah, as always, we'll start with dodgeball news. I think the only dodgeball news we have to start with is Euro updates, right?
Yeah.
So we know this year it's in AussieJ in Croatia, but we now know details about what's happening next year and the year after. Zoe, do you want to, as social media person
Euros first.
Euros, yeah. Do you want
the
to take it away?
representative on the podcast?
Yeah. So finally managed to confirm the locations for all the regional Euros next year. Which for those who haven't been through the Euro cycles before, usually Euros is once every 2 years. And then in the alternating years, there's a smaller regional competition that's between about 6 or so nations in each region. And that's kind of North European Championships, now Western European Championships, Central European Championships, and hopefully Eastern European Championships. But I think that's still a little bit not 100% sure it's going ahead, but hopefully it is. So those have all been announced. All the locations for those are happening. So yeah, that'll be for British listeners. The 2 important ones are the Western European Championships and the Northern European Championships, since the home nations are kind of split across those 2 different groups. But all of them absolutely worthwhile. The other interesting thing about them is that you do get to enter about 2 teams at least into each category for each nation. I think there is a little bit of looking into whether or not some of those events might even go up to 3. So it's quite good for countries that are running development squads. Then they can send their seconds or their development squad along. So that's quite very exciting for the sort of younger players coming up. And then yeah, the Euros in 2025 are finally happening in Ireland, like they were meant to ages ago. I feel like we've been waiting for the Irish European Championships for ages now. But
yeah, because I think it was NEC's, was it, that Ireland was originally meant to host right before COVID?
Yeah.
And I was meant to play in that, and I'd literally I'd probably had about 50 to 100 people in my family all ready to go to it as well, and it all got cancelled. I was like, shit. So gonna have to prolong my my playing career to at least try and make it to that. Well,
Yeah,
first I have to recover from a fucking ACL injury, but that's a different story. But yeah, no, I'm really excited for that. That'll be really fun, and the Irish know how to put on a good show, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what they come up with.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it just because I've never been to Ireland, so that'll be nice.
Criminal.
I mean, it's amazing with friends, Colin. To be fair,
I'm leaving the podcast.
That's why we have you on, because we need someone to make up the Isles. We have the Isles and mainland Europe. That is how this podcast works.
I feel like we're just tokens now for Nick. Oh my god.
And there's people like Jersey.
He's been to Austria, but he won't even go to Ireland. Yeah, right. Okay. I see it now.
I've been to Austria once.
Been to Ireland 0 times.
invite me over. Where's my invite, bro? Like, come on.
I don't want to invite you anymore. Piss me off. We've been live for 2 minutes and you've already pissed me off. Off to a great start.
Yeah, as always. Yeah, so what? We've got the NEC in Denmark, in Copenhagen, right? The WEC in France somewhere.
Yeah.
Where is the CEC? Do we know?
I think the French one is in Paris, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. CEC's is Czech Republic, I think. I vaguely remember that. I should know this. And then Eastern European is still to be confirmed, basically. I think.
Cool. And we had some new nations join as well, or officially join. One that caught me completely by surprise was Portugal.
Yeah, I didn't see that one coming, I'll be honest.
Have you seen their open announcement? Was it you who sent me that, Nick?
Yeah. So they've got an open, and they've got, for anyone interested, Astro's looking at you. They've got so for the first 30 people that sign up, they will sort out accommodation for, and they can help sort out travel arrangements as well, provided you get to a certain city. So yeah, it's definitely worth looking into, because I mean, who wouldn't want like a random open in Portugal? I know we've got.
That's Nick throwing out his feelers into joining the Astros team, you know.
I mean, I don't think I can do it.
Looking at you guys, pick me.
No, really, what I just want is I want like a post just dedicated to me, because like, you know, the egos.
You're jealous that Zoe had one before you.
I know, it's just not fair. Like, she's had one on EDF as well, and she's had one by BD. Like, I mean, Zoe, like you just like people talking about you, don't you? Really, like.
Nick, I feel like this is a very dangerous path for you to go down. I can just post the worst photos of you on Catching Out after this.
Shit, yeah, I forgot you got my mail. Oh god. It's just like the Catching Out for the next like a week will just be cannon fodder of us posting the worst photos of each other.
Why am I getting stressed?
No, you won't be involved, because we haven't got anything. Well, only Zoe's got pictures of you, to be fair.
They're all there's literally one of me just going like, I fucked up.
There was a day where I was trying.
Oh my god, there was that one mate. Oh no,
I was trying to get a good photo of Colm, because you'd asked me to like try and get some photos for the intro thing, and so I was desperately trying to get good photos of Colm. Literally every time I turned my camera towards him, he would get hit out. And just saw the saddest looking face.
She was the fucking curse that day.
I've got like 20 photos of him looking like he's about to cry.
Yeah, later on you got some absolute clinking photos of me, to be fair to you. But that mate, like literally every single one, I went through the bees, like photos from that mate, and every single one of me was just like, even if I wasn't like the center of attention of the photo, you could still see me looking depressed in the background. I was just like, yeah, great.
I think I know which meat you're talking about as well, and
yeah, thanks, pal. Jarring it in there.
I mean, it's a great day for me. I'm not gonna hide away from that one. Yeah, anything else we can think of? I mean, obviously the season's ended, which is why we're here. I mean,
mostly ended.
Mostly ended. We've got mixed still to finish off.
Yeah.
But
and British champs as well.
Yeah, British champs.
We just had British Open.
the reaction to British champs. Yeah, I mean that's. I guess
I will be there, and if I don't have the box coach, I will be drunk.
That's the most important thing about British champs is there is a bar at the back.
Yeah. If there's ever a reason to be a supporter, it's that. I'll probably end up being box coach for the day, but if we end up getting knocked out early, I will be in that bar. I will probably stay for a night out in Liverpool as well. Can't lie.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I will drag people to some sort of club afterwards.
Yeah.
Or pub. I don't care. It is. I enjoy Liverpool. Anyway, yes, I can't remember who the winners are. It was the Spartans, and I have no idea who won the women's side.
On the Open, British Open.
Yeah, British Open.
Oh, okay,
It was Meteors on the men's side. Meteors won the men's
Oh, Meteors won. Sorry, it was Meteor Spartans final,
Spartans
wasn't it?
won the women, yeah. Oh, and Spartans won the
Spartans won. Spartans won the women. Maybe that's how I got mixed up.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I think they beat. Did they beat Sheriffs in the final? Was it Sheriffs or Rangers? I can't remember.
No.
Because the third fourth playoff was.
The third fourth playoff was the really fun one where it was Rangers against Derby, and Rangers versus Derby the day before had been kind of a bit of a cakewalk for Derby, and then Rangers somehow won the third place playoff. So after like the harrowing,
No way.
that's the thing, is like the Rangers went into that match like having had a really harrowing day beforehand, where it had been like really stressful knowing that they might be about to get relegated, and they got pretty badly done by Derby the day before, and then they go into that match being like, this is not going to be fun. We're all knackered. It's the end of 2, hard days of dodgeball, and just beat Derby and play a really good game.
I'm pretty sure that was the semi-final because
Leah got a double catch in the last match. I know
Let's go. Love that.
And I wasn't there to see it, and I'm waiting for the footage, but everyone told me afterwards.
I swear that was the semi-final because I thought I rest the third fourth, which was Ballyhack versus Derby, but I could be wrong.
I'm pretty sure Ballyhack came. Was it not Ballyhack versus Spartans in the final?
No, they lost to Spartans in the semis because that was another one I refed. Because it was a really weird scenario where because the British Open's like the reffing in the end was if you lose you ref, and Ballyhack lost, so they had to referee Meteors versus Killer Bees in the semi-final straight after, and then they played. Oh no, maybe they came for. I can't remember. Yeah.
All I know.
Yeah. Because then it was because then they played and then they beat Derby, but then
Rangers were in the final. Comment from Blue.
There we go. Yeah, because then Derby would have been reffing Derby versus Bees in the third fourth for the men's because Derby lost to Ballyhack, I think is how it went. So, but yeah.
In my defense, I was on the other court, so I didn't see any of this, and I just heard about it.
Amateur. You are actually involved in the event, whereas some of us were just pointing fingers and saying you're out.
Some of us were just at home in bed.
Also valid. But yeah, anything else on the news? Can anyone else think of anything? Delicious Express has a bunch of spaces open, so get your tickets.
Just like massively expanded it, or just
no? A bunch of people dropped out. I can't remember why. There was a valid reason why. I think a load of people.
Yeah, there was something else that weekend. I remember we worked it out, but I don't know what it was.
Oh,
is it? It's not Kelvin Cup. Kelvin Cup's afterwards. It's the week after, so it's not that.
It's not Pisa either. I can't remember. There's something on that weekend anyway. Someone will remind us.
Pisa is this weekend, so that's exciting for anyone who cares about Italian dodgeball.
Yeah, and the only GB team going are the Astros. So good luck to them. Enjoy for your.
So it's like, thank you.
How many kits have you acquired?
I like talking about myself.
How many kits have you acquired by actually playing for them this year? Playing for different teams this year? Like.
Oh, it's going to increase because I'm guesting as well for the something Lionesses, one of the Italian teams, and I'm hoping that I can trade one of my Astros shirts for one of those as well. And then I'm also going to be playing for MK Second Wind at the Kelvin Cup, I think it is. So I'm getting that kit as well. The piss kit.
Nice. I'll read that. Yeah, I think that's about it. Cool. All right. Shall we get on to the actual events that unfolded 2 weekends ago?
Yeah.
Oh God, it's 2 weeks already. That's crazy.
I know. Sort of anyway. We're starting with Women's Super League because why not start off hot, right?
It was so stressful. It was so stressful to watch.
It was a very stressful day for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're talking to, I'm talking to two people who probably didn't have the most enjoyable day.
I mean, I had a very fun drinking game, and I picked Hannah Ward as my player, and she played an absolute belter of a match. So I actually had a really fun day. I may have been
For the wrong
stressed.
reasons. Yeah, as somebody who sat at home getting the results fed in, it was not a fun day all around, to be perfectly honest.
For our audio listeners, we're referring to B's catastrophic day of 2 very heavy losses, unfortunately for them, which put them right at the bottom of the league, which I don't think any of us saw going into happening. I definitely didn't predict them losing by that much in both games. I thought it was possible, but I think some of the other results were a bit surprising as well. Especially that
there's been so many, there's been so many surprise results the past couple of meets in the women's side of things, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start with the events that unfolded for this, to be perfectly honest.
Well,
I think,
yeah. The start of the first game is that we talked about on the last pod was, you know, Valkyries versus Bees, and that sort of setting the scene for what might happen. Because it depended what Valkyrie's team would turn up. We know that, you know, players have been coming and going for them a bit. So there is an opportunity there for Bees. If there was ever a time to play Valkyries, it was then. Apparently not. Because Bees, you know, Valkyries still did their thing. But that sort of set the scene, I think, for the day of, you know, Bees were then in that position where they had to fight. Storm 2 had lost heavily to Spartans, but I don't think anyone really expected anything else other than that. So we knew the 2 teams were going to be going into that game later fighting tooth and nail to stay up.
Yeah.
Sheriffs decided that they weren't really going to mess around and beat Rangers. Like, they didn't want to get involved in it. I don't have anything to say about that game, to be honest. I don't know what you guys thought. Like, did you get to see the Sheriffs Rangers game?
No.
No, I didn't watch it, but you know what? Fair play to Sheriffs. They could have just turned up and not really given a shit, because I think their exact position was solidified before it even went into the last meet.
Them and Valkyries, yeah.
Yeah, so like they could have easily just gone in and gone, oh, screw it, we'll just play with like blindfolds on or some shit like that. So fair play to them. They went out and gave a strong showing in the match against Rangers, and by God, that would have had Rangers sweating for later on. Especially as they were playing at the same time as the big game that basically decided their fate.
Yeah, that must have been super nervy.
Yeah. With that Sheriffs squad as well, just like it's interesting because it's not the same lineup that they've had most of the season, but it is probably closest to the one that we think they'll probably have next season. So I think like the last 2 meets have been interesting to watch Sheriffs kind of bloody their new squad, as it were. And I personally expected it to go a lot worse for Sheriffs the last 2 meets than it has. I think they've actually put on a really good show and really dug their heels in and played really well for what's quite a different lineup and a distinctly less experienced lineup that's still actually playing very, very well. So huge kudos to them, because that Ranger squad isn't easy to beat at all. That's a very good Ranger squad as well. So yeah, good match. If I'd watched it, I imagine.
Meanwhile, on the other court, Bedford Mighty Eagles versus Derby. Bedford Mighty Eagles handing the first loss to Derby and their only loss of the season. Wow.
What the fuck?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy.
I'll let you guys take the floor on this one. I have watched it. I have forgotten a lot of what happened, but it was a good game from memory. Maybe you can jog my memory.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, very, very good match. It's one of those ones where I find it surprising that Derby haven't had a loss so far this season. Like, had that many draws, you kind of think it's gotta happen at some point. And in every single one of those draws that Derby got, there was a moment where you're thinking, oh, this is going to run away from them. And then they just about managed to clean it back. And it just didn't really happen here. I don't remember the exact play out of the match, as in, like, how many sets space there was ever. But it was just one of those ones where it was quite a close match, it felt like, and then just slipped out of their hands, which they've had a whole season of having very close matches that didn't quite slip out their hands. So kind of statistically bound to happen at some point. Just quite funny that it ended up happening in the final meet. It still would have been quite funny if they'd like come second in the league with no losses. That would have been funnier. But fair play to Beagles.
Yeah, if they got a draw, it would have been really, really fun.
I'm only here for comedy value in the league.
No, I can't remember exactly how it panned out, but I just remember there was just moments of bad decision making from Derby in big sets. I feel like that was like a game where maybe the pressure got to them a bit and they went a bit too aggressive, unlike their usual selves. They usually really enjoy being this smart team, really aware of ball possession, really aware of who they're targeting. And I just felt like they went a bit too chaotic and it kind of cost them. I think if there's a team that you don't want to be breaking your kind of usual mold against, it would be Beagles, as there's a lot of very experienced players who are very good at taking advantage of situations. And that's what I felt like they'd done. And overall, I did think that from watching it, I thought Bedford were the better team in this instance. I just thought Derby weren't their usual, like, on point, very accurate throw in, very smart usual selves. But you've got to give them a lot of credit. Like, to they're essentially were so close to becoming the champions, just turning a couple of those draws into wins. And you'd be crowning them the champions. And I don't think you could have argued with that either. Like, they've probably been the most consistent team for the entirety of the season. Like, I don't really think they've had a bad game this entire year. I think that's the closest to a bad game they've got. And all it really was a few poor decisions and a lower hit accuracy than usual. That's probably about it. So to say that for an entire season and to come third is very harsh on them, to be fair.
Yeah.
Pretty good going though. And where did they come last year? Do you remember? I can't remember. Did they finish fourth?
Derby?
Yeah.
I thought they finished top 3, didn't they?
Yeah, I think
can't
so.
remember how it fell out, but
they were in that group that could have won it. But
yeah, I know they were in that.
There was five
five
teams. I
There's
thought
five teams,
was it like was it Storm and Sheriffs finished outside of the top
No,
5
there's
in the
Valkyries.
end?
Was it? Oh no,
Or Valkyrie.
Valkyries came second.
Valkyries came second. So yeah,
Beagles came first.
third.
Spartans came third.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so Derby came fourth.
Seconds, because Spartans always come second. That feels like a pretty easy guess if I had to say anyone came second.
I can't remember.
Yeah, either way, they were in that kind of...
Yeah. So I think they managed to medal this year where they didn't medal last year, I think is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
Which is still an improvement, even if it was only third. I say only third. It's still very impressive to be third. Like they
still
were
2 points off being top as well, which I think was the same
third.
as last year.
Yeah, comfortably third. Like compared to last year, where it was a bit of a absolute mess of who's going to do it. When fourth place was very much solidified. We'll get onto that when we get to the table. But yeah, good game, and yeah, well, I think we knew it was going to come down to this at the end between those two teams. So yeah, good to see. And then you go on to the Stafford Raptors beating. Sorry, I said that very posh. Stafford Raptors beating Storm.
Which has now become probably
the
one of the biggest results
match.
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. Well, we'll touch on it whenever we get to the table. But,
yeah, we'll get to the table.
Yeah, that has now become probably the most important match of Raptors season, unexpectedly.
Debatable though, because there were, for other reasons, games where they got wins.
Like the upset over Queens in the start of the season and stuff like that. Yeah, like obviously every game matters, yada yada. But in terms of
what we didn't
like the future of Stafford next season, that is
exactly
the biggest match, and they didn't even know it until
I was gonna say that's
the other day.
Is like going into that match and winning such an important match without knowing that it was an important match.
Yeah,
like that's pretty damn cool.
I mean, going into that, I think they still had to know that they needed to,
to give themselves they had to get the win to get themselves a chance.
I don't know what would happen. I think because if Stafford beat Storm, if Sheriffs then beat Storm, would Storm not have been lower? I don't know if they would have lost, but I don't know. I'll have to look at the table, but
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you got to go.
No,
In and do
the set difference would have been too good.
Depends what they won. They lost to Sheriff Spy. Like if they
no,
it's
massive.
Oh, is it massive? Right, okay. Never mind.
Got
Shut
it
up,
on
mate.
other screen.
Okay, cool. But then that then leads into okay, right? Then it's a Storm 2s versus Bees fight. I don't know if it would have made much of a difference at this point. I think it still would, wouldn't it?
If Bees won, they would have survived. It
Yeah.
wouldn't have affected Raptors.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was huge.
Yeah.
And this is a purely hindsight thing as well, like because of the big news that came out the other day.
Yeah, I mean, talking of big news, shall we just go onto the table and break it?
I think we've hinted at it enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was surprised when they so yeah, terribly releasing the news that Valkyries are folding and are not going to be playing next season. It seems. From my understanding, they are essentially merging with White Tigers. Is my understanding. So
yeah.
Gone in kit, but not in players. I think not all the players anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say I imagine part of it's because of players leaving due to injuries or just retiring for personal reasons. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of those players like just don't return.
Yeah. I don't know. I definitely feel like Valkyries have one of the nicest kits, or Valkyries Vikings had one of the nicest kits. So even though they were only there for 5 years.
Do you not like the Leeds bird shit kit, Nick?
You mean your
Still
bird
the
shit
best
kit?
thing you've ever done,
Why make memes when you can make meme kits?
Incredible.
Yeah, great job.
Leeds literally were a meme every single match. Like, it's the best thing ever.
To be fair, the kit did grow on me, and I'd maintain that if you like wear shorts that aren't those gradient
that's just because you didn't want to be embarrassed wearing it. Let's be honest. But
hey, I thought it was alright, but yeah.
But like back to the Valkyries folding.
Yeah,
like the big news that means, assuming they accept it, Raptors would be staying in Women's Super League. Most likely, right?
We'll see.
Which is just incredible, because if they lost that game against Storm, that would have been offered to Queen Bees instead, which is massive. Like that win over Storm is massive now. Like that's a complete like 180 of how like they would feel about the end of this season, because like Raptors really came into their own towards the end of the year. Like they started off quite individual, like players on court. There wasn't really that big team chemistry, but the more they played, the more they really gelled and put on some big fights towards the end.
Yeah.
Gotta respect it.
Yeah.
And then, like we were talking about earlier on, Derby coming third with 5 draws and a loss, which that's gotta be a tough pill to swallow, you know. That's gotta be a really tough pill to swallow.
It is, but like they are draws, you know. Like some of them were just don't capitulate at the end. Like you were holding out for a win, you were doing well, and then to 5 times, and I'm not saying that all 5 times they were in the lead and they lost the final set, but 5 times not see out a win, because I think in my head the majority of them they were ahead and they let a team come back.
There's at least 2 of them that spring to mind that were that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it was more that way than the other. That's where it's sort of like you just need to hold on for one more set. It's not. That's something to look back on and something to work on for next year, which is just, you know, decision making. And, you know, like you were saying in that last game, like, you know, in games that they've lost, I think it's more the decision making at times than it has been, you know, one individual play here or there. And, you know, if you iron them out as a squad, you lose less sets, and that becomes less of a draw and less close games and more wins in the end. It's not that they haven't got the talent; they've definitely got the talent to do it.
100%.
Like they are one of the best teams in England for a reason. But yeah.
Yeah, it's not even like, obviously if you draw that many games, it's very hard to actually win the league at the end of the day. But even if they hadn't lost that match against Beagles, in all likelihood they would not have won the league because they didn't get the
No.
set difference. Because if you draw a match, you get 0 set difference, and so they don't get that extra little benefit that Spartans got from actually winning matches. Which, yeah, it's it's great to it's better to draw than it is to lose, but some of those matches were definitely winnable. I think Derby, looking back on their seasons, will 100% be kicking themselves over losing to Bees, especially now that Bees are 10th in the table.
Drawing.
That's sorry,
Drawing, yeah.
drawing. But that's a match that they should have won, essentially. Like, you can't expect to win the league if you're drawing against the bottom of the league.
Oh, that's true. And then Bedford will look back at the loss against Valkyries in particular as a missed opportunity now. Because that definitely should have been a game that like with the squad they have, you would have expected them to be winning, especially as Valkyries, like they didn't even train together for the most part of the season, so that'll definitely be seen as a massive missed opportunity. You win that, you won the league. And they finished with the highest set difference, so you could argue you could argue that they should have been finishing top.
Yeah, definitely. I think another I also want to say congratulations Spartans for winning. Obviously this is the first time that they've won the actual league. Am I right? Yeah.
The women's?
It's been Bedford Mighty Eagles all the other time. So big congratulations to Lone Spartans on that one. Very much deserved, I think. Drawing 3 and losing 1, really impressive. And who was their one loss to? Bedford Mighty Eagles, or I can't remember.
I can't remember either. I was trying to find this.
Scroll through the history.
Oh, Phantoms. It was Derby.
Oh, did they actually lose Derby? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, round 3, yeah.
Which is, an impressive run to then, bounce back from that and only see 3 draws. So very good going from them. I also want to say another impressive showing, and this will be the only time I say this. Storm 2 getting more wins than their first team. Like, that is really good going.
I didn't even notice that. That's crazy.
6.
Oh my god! Like, what the fuck? What the?
It's such a weird season. Like,
I thought you were gonna say Storm 2 are just such a weird team, which they are. I think that's, like, talking to them, I think the general consensus everyone's got around Storm versus Storm 2 is Storm 1, really, like, regimented, really well drilled, really focused. Storm 2, like a fucking child gone hyperactive, like, chaotic as hell on court, and yet somehow just absolutely killing it by the end of the season. What the hell? How did they?
Right, I just want to say, Zoe said that. She said that, not me. Do not come for me. That was all Zoe saying. You're chaotic.
They won the match.
Wrong?
Watch them play.
I mean, they were really good, but they were all all over the space. I think what really sticks to me is knowing how League One went the year before, where they just clawed promotion spot away from Nighthawks. Like, they just clawed it, and now they're going and finishing 7th. I mean, it comes down to the last day, but 6 wins in Super League is really good going. Whereas you compare it to the year before when Wessex and White Tigers went down, where I think Wessex had 2 wins, which were against White Tigers, and that was it. And White Tigers had no wins. Whereas this year it's just been no teams finished on less than 4 wins, which is kind of nuts. If you get 4 wins, especially 4 wins and a draw, that should mean you're beating the 2 teams below you, or at least 1 team below you. No, 2 teams below you twice. So you should be finishing 8th, logically. And here, no. Everyone's just beating each other. It's nuts. Women's Super League for you.
Math bomb. In every episode.
Yeah, I can do some maths, but maths not very well, bomb.
What do you mean? You definitely didn't have Storm down as losing by 994 score difference.
That
we
was
need
that
to
was an
link
Easter
that
egg.
graphic to Storm 2.
That's an Easter egg.
It's an Easter. It was on stream, and I realised that
Yeah,
I've
I'm
updated
aware.
all the graphics, but it was on the wrong bloody folder. So I need to go like find all the original graphics. Oh, anyway, right, we'll get to that. That's how much I hate them. They had minus 1,000 set difference. But yeah, no, impressive.
Six wins, but you lost by like 200 points in every other match. Yeah, fantastic. Congratulations.
But just to go.
If that was the case, I'd just relegate myself, to be honest.
You can only dream, right? But just to say, what's the outcome of Valkyrie's, folding over? The result will be, and it should be, that Raptors stay up. So in 9th place, that win becoming against Storm 1 becoming very important for Raptors.
Madness.
And Queen Bees will be in League 1, which does mean your most northern team in Women's Super League is Nottingham Sheriffs.
I'm on that geography.
I'll be a big Sheriffs fan then next season.
Yeah, we're all rooting for our northern powerhouse of a team in Sheriffs.
Oh god.
But yeah, could be an interesting one next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Zoe, you know what's next.
Do I?
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't want to talk about this. I'm just
Stop, burn it.
I'm just gonna go get some water for 40 minutes.
40 minutes. To be fair, you could give Nick a full 2 hours to talk about Women's League 1.
I know, Nick.
I know, Nick. Right, Nick, do you want to talk about your favourite team?
I mean, I did a really good job of making sure that I wasn't involved and refed instead. But yeah, I don't even know where to start on this because
let's take it round by round of matches, right? So let's start with Spartans 2 versus Honeybees.
Thank you.
I'll be nice, right? Spartans 2 comfortably beat Honeybees. Honeybees, who have had a very up and down season. It has been a lot of losses, but as an overall team, they've progressed quite well. A lot of new players who are playing competitive nationals for the first time outside of uni, coming into the squad and given some very good showings. 1 win for the season, which is there were definitely a couple of matches that they were very close with, losing by 1 or 2 sets. So they can be definitely proud of themselves. Spartans 2, I expected a wee bit more from them overall this season, but I think overall they performed well as a squad from a couple of matches that I've seen. Some very good players who I think with a bit more hard work over the next 6 to 12 months could become very important and integral in Spartans as a whole. There's definitely a few girls in there that if anybody was to kind of leave the Spartans first team, they could slot in and do a good job there. So I'm really excited to see how they perform in the future as well. Do you want to talk about the other match that happened first that morning?
I was just going to say on Spartans 2, just before we move on.
Yeah, no worries.
I think one thing I want to just sort of highlight here, and I say highlight, I've said it all bloody season. Women's League 1 has been competitive all the way around. Like mid-table, top table, it's been a good competitive team season. The Spartans 2, we'll get onto where they finish, but finishing where they've done and losing the games they have, don't forget how impressive Hartlepool have been, how impressive Crocs have been, Nighthawks and Phantoms too. It's not an easy league to consistently do well in, and yeah, they'll definitely gel well as a team, and they'll continue to get better. But that's also to say that actually the team, the teams that they've been leveling as, considering it's their first season against say Phantoms 2 and Mavericks who've been playing a while, and Crocs. I mean, Crocs, it's their first time as well. and Nighthawks who nearly got promoted last season, to see Nighthawks, down in that sort of mid pack and, you know, Spartans 2 holding their own against them really shows you the competitive strength of League One this year, and really sort of the direction that League's in. So I just want to give like big credit to those teams, because it is genuinely, it's not just about the wins and losses, it's about the competitiveness on the court, and it's definitely been really good to see. But yeah, on to, unless you've got anything to say, Zoe, on to that game.
I mean, yeah.
So, I mean, I can give an account of from what I understand has happened. Half time, the score was 8-2 to Leeds,
And we should have stopped it there.
and the final score was 12-8 to White Tigers. And this was a this was a win and you're into Super League game. I think Zoe's sort of showing, for audio listeners, she's just hiding right now.
Zoe doesn't want to talk anymore.
What's there to talk about? You know what? The dream was still alive even after this game. Okay, so I would.
Like we did cheer on
I have a big question. I know this is going to be a bit of a difficult one to answer, Zoe, but in the last episode, whenever I discussed this game, I had predicted the White Tigers to win it because I always feel that whenever it's Leeds in a big game, that the mentality that should be there just never isn't. Do you think that's the case, or do you think something else was the reason for this very unexpected loss, especially being in such a strong position at halftime?
I would not say that it was an unexpected loss going into the day. I'd say at half time, I would have predicted we'd win. Yeah, 8-2 up.
Yeah. That
going into the match, I was fully like listening back to the previous episode. And when you started talking about it, then I was like, yeah, no, fully 100% agree. I don't think that we're going to win that match, and that's probably why we went up 8-2. Is because I can't speak for everyone on the Leeds team.
pressure
Obviously,
was off.
I know a couple of us. Yeah, we're kind of like the pressure's off. We're probably going to lose this game, and that's fine because White Tigers. It's interesting listening to like Neutral Zone. Then they were talking about how like, ooh, I don't know if I've frozen there. I've frozen on my side. Have I frozen?
No, it's just Nick's OBS thing. Don't worry.
Cool. Yeah, listening to like Neutral Zone when they were talking about, they were like, oh, I don't know where White Tigers even came from. Like, how did they just sneak up on us? And basically, if you look at the history of this year, White Tigers had one bad meet. They messed up 2 matches early on, losing against White Tigers and Mavericks, and then they didn't fuck up ever again. That was it. Whereas Wessex had a great start to the league, and then 2 very weird results throughout the league. I'll put it that way. And we'll get to the second one of those later because I'm definitely not letting that one slide. And then Leeds actually were the most consistent and didn't lose against any lower teams. Like the other 2 top teams against lower teams than the top 3. Leeds did not. Leeds only lost against the top 3, but we lost every time except for when we drew against Wessex. So it's that thing of, yeah, we are provably we were worse in big matches and we couldn't hold our own in those big matches, but we were very good at keeping our heads together in the like in every other match. We didn't go in assuming that we were going to win. We kind of were just there playing the games that came, and therefore did very well at maintaining our lead throughout the year, and arguably made it look as if we were doing better in the league than we had. If the matches that we played in the last 2 meets had come halfway through the league instead of at the end of the league, then nobody would have thought that we were going to win the league.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the big one, the draw against Wessex and this game against White Tigers, are both matches that I haven't seen this match, so I can't be 100% sure. I'm just kind of going off of what I've heard and how it was at halftime. Like against Wessex, on the stream, whenever I watched it, I was there going, Leeds definitely had the opportunities to take that match and didn't take it. But I thought overall you were the slightly better team in that game, personally. And being 8-2 up at halftime against White Tigers in this game, definitely there for the taking.
Yeah.
So it kind of reaffirmed to me that in terms of ability, I would still put you probably in top of the table if I was like on paper in my eyes, right? I don't know this league as well as either of you two. Like, I'll put that out there. But if you were to ask me who I would say on ability wise and experience wise as well, I would have put Leeds top of that table, especially whenever at the point that you joined, it was a huge pull for Leeds because I thought you suited their play style quite well and added a few different dynamics to the squad. So I definitely would have, because I know you keep telling me that you weren't expecting Leeds to beat White Tigers and Wessex, and it's definitely me that's putting you as favourites because a few other people have kind of agreed with you on that front. But yeah, I was definitely, I wasn't shocked to hear that you were 8-2 up at halftime, but I also wasn't shocked to hear that you you blew it at the end.
It's so Leeds, and I fully agree with
Yeah.
what you said. Like, we are, in my opinion, and no offense to like White Tigers or anyone else, I would say pound for pound, most of our players are more experienced than if you were doing like a 1v1 style competition. Yeah,
Hmm.
maybe we'd win, but that's not how dodgeball works. It's a
No,
6v6.
you're absolutely right.
And it comes down to like team tactics, it comes down to coaching and all that side of things, but it also comes down to gelling as a squad. And ultimately, Leeds does have this slight issue of it's like the super squad of the northern, like the north. Like it's just people from random places. Half the squad does not live in Leeds, so it does create this tricky situation there where I think when you compare that to something like what White Tigers have in their setup, where they've been playing together for years. Like
Hmm?
some of those girls have been playing. It's like when you look at France at Euros. Like some of those girls have been playing together for their entire careers, and they're still incredibly young, but they've got years of experience under their belts.
Yeah.
It's a bit hard to beat that, even if you do individually play better. You're not going to have that automatic. Like if you look at some of the fuck ups that Leeds have as far as individual plays, frequently it's just misreading what the other player's doing in the same move. So
Yeah, that's an interesting one, definitely. And I think there's one thing that's probably been a bit of a bias from me against White Tigers is whenever I've seen them in Super League, and that's probably the time I've watched them the most live and in person. I was kind of sitting there going like, is there enough there in League One to combat the Leeds women's team whenever they formed or reformed, I should say, and Wessex Wolves. I probably didn't give them enough credit for and didn't also bring into it that they would be more experienced and they would have be better players individually because they'll obviously keep on improving through training together improving as a squad as a whole, which I probably don't take into account as much as I probably should. um but yeah, fair play to them, and they absolutely deserve to come out as champions because that was a big match, and for them to have the mentality and the bottle to turn around 8-2 down at halftime to win every single set is absolutely massive and cannot be understated.
it's insane. Like huge, huge. Like the fucking balls on those girls. What the fuck? How do you do that? How do you
100%.
turn around an 8-2 like down at halftime in the most important match of the season and just go ahead and win every single set in the second half? That's nuts.
Yeah, no, absolutely incredible, and you won't see that in too many leagues happening.
Mm.
That for absolutely fair play to them.
Yeah,
They should definitely enjoy it, and I can imagine them call it like if this year's women's Super League's anything to go by, like they could definitely kind of cause a few upsets and do something similar to what Raptors have done this season.
mm.
I will just say from a Leeds perspective, outside of playing in the team, um, I think it's hard sometimes with the expectation with some of the results that we had with the way the fixtures went to not feel like we should do that well. But I think there has to be a reminder of where this team's come from in the fact that it didn't exist last year at all. Um, of the players that played this season, I think only 3 played in the previous women's Leeds team in the last season. I think maybe 4. But we've had so many new players come in and rotate through that like by the end of the season we had like what 3 or 4 people that weren't playing. It's been quite a big squad that we've had. So to have what 4 new players come in during the season, and then that meaning that you're rotating 4 players in and out during the season as well with availability, um, really speaks to what's happened as a club, and to still have the consistency to be like, we're going to beat everyone below us, we just can't quite crack the 2 above us. I think actually speaks more to the impressiveness of the skill of the players and how well they have been able to gel in spite of the circumstances, rather than disappointment that it wasn't a promotion. Because Leeds can look into it next year and go, we did really well compared to everyone else. We should be in a good space for next year. And there's only one team coming down. We don't know what's going to happen regarding any new teams that appear, how good those new teams will be. We can definitely expect teams like Nighthawks and Spartans 2 and Hartlepool to continue growing and getting better. But yeah, definitely not to be too disappointed or downhearted. Like, I think from a club perspective, it's really good to see that competitiveness there, and the women's team grow so much as it has. Just good things to see. Anyway,
Yeah,
enough about
absolutely.
Leeds. The next game, which we cannot miss, is Crocs drawing to Wessex. Absolutely love that game. Love that result. And from a personal perspective, really appreciated how energetic the Crocs goal were. They came over and was like, we drew to them for you, we drew to them for you. And I was like, yes, Crocs, like, let's go. Really great to see. But that wasn't to spite Wessex. That was definitely just to have fun and show that there were more games to play, and that this league came down literally to the last fixture. But yeah, big draw for Crocs, and I think from my perspective shows that Crocs have definitely, their result does not reflect how good of a team they are, and some of the results don't reflect how good they've been playing, because they took Leeds very close in the first game against Leeds. I think it was only a 1 or 2 set difference when they last played. So yeah, great team, and definitely a great result.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, to be perfectly honest. And now that we've kind of brought up Wessex, to discuss their final game, to have gone from a draw against Crocs to go into, based on the league table, a much stronger team. They probably were a bit mentally having to regain and refocus, and to come out comfortably winning that 15-5 is a pretty big, well, I say it's a pretty big result. It's a massive result, and based on the league table, when they could have easily just crumbled and kind of thrown it away, and in the very end, especially after Leeds beat Spartans 2. Like that, to the way they regained showed their experience and showed the quality in that team, because Nighthawks aren't a easy team to beat. Like we've seen that from the Drew with Derby, who have been kind of matching them result for result, for the majority of the season. So yeah, fair play to Wessex, and all I have to say is good luck in Women's Super League next season.
That was a killer
Yeah.
game, by the way. That Nighthawks Derby game, that was killer. Like, when it comes down to something like 7 seconds on the clock, and there's a miscommunication, so someone steps off court, so it's 60 seconds set to draw it, and Nighthawks do.
Oh, is that what happened? I haven't seen it. Oh,
It
that's
was
sick.
you say sick. Absolutely heartbroken for Derby that happened. Like, they just needed to stay on court. They had one player left, and just misunderstood what getting back, as in get back to safety, was for stepping off court.
Oh no! Oh shit! I thought you meant she heard it last second to step off court to make it. Oh no!
No. It was just as far as I could tell, a miscommunication from the box. Absolutely nuts.
Shit.
So Nighthawks were coming off that one as well. To then come back to that, to clinch a draw out of nowhere on high hopes, to then go into that Wessex game as well, shows that, impressive for Wessex.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, Zoe, go on.
No, all I was going to say is I think Tom's absolutely right to bring attention to the fact that the Wessex games should be viewed together as a progression throughout the day. I think watching the end of the Crocs Wessex match and having talked to the players who played it, then first of all, like Crocs played an absolute blinder, and Maya apparently in particular played really, really well. So excited to watch that footage if it exists anywhere out there. But the difference, I think Wessex had their very classic Wessex problem where they lose their heads a little bit, and this has been Wessex's problem for years, right? Like it's what screwed them over in Super League. It's what screwed them over earlier on in the season as well. In League One, where they just kind of lose their heads and they go a bit nuts, and they can't quite get it together again. And I think having heard that result and knowing that Kelly is injured pretty badly at the moment, so they don't, they're lacking their figurehead, as it were, their captain. And that's obviously going to lead you to think, okay, they've screwed up. They're down their captain. They're losing their heads against even a team like Crocs. They're kind of, maybe we've got a chance. Maybe Wessex are going to lose against Nighthawks. So for them to actually like get their heads back together in that time, and just sort of pull it back in the Nighthawks game pretty damn well, I think is quite comforting as far as Wessex in next season, because Super League is more tense. It's really, really stressful as an environment, Super League. And so there is the worry looking at that Wessex team that if their downfall is always that they end up stressed on court, surely going into Super League is just going to cause that to be even bigger of a problem, especially if Kelly's still injured or retires because of the injury. Like, isn't that just setting them up a little bit for failure and for a yo-yo kind of situation again? But I think seeing them pull that back and again against Nighthawks might actually be a little bit of hope there, as far as like maybe they can kind of finally fix that attitude and mental game problem that they've had for a few years now, and just kind of be a little bit more stable on court. Which sounds really harsh. That sounds really, really judgmental of Wessex. They're an incredible team. That's just the thing that is how you play Wessex. Everyone knows it. That is their famous like struggle and flaw. So it'll be interesting to see what next season's like for them.
I mean, especially
Yeah,
given that you're going to have to play 3 games in a day, right?
Yeah.
So if you lose your head in lose your head in game one, you need to be able to pull it out the bag to sort it for 2 more games, because otherwise you're losing a sixth of your games just because you had one bad game potentially.
True. Very true. I actually wasn't aware about the Kelly situation, so hope everything's all right and that she gets well soon as well.
I think it happened in her match against us in the previous meet. I'm pretty sure it was. I think it was that, because she was off.
I remember. Yeah, at the end.
And then she was off the entire final meet. So I've heard that it's a knee problem, and obviously that's absolutely gutting for her.
Not what you want to hear.
God, knee problems in dodgeball. You never hear about that.
So,
can't relate.
sending best wishes to get well soon. But yeah. Other games though, and that happened, because I know we focus on the top of the court, top of the table. I still want to highlight the fact that Hartlepool drew to Derby, so Derby get another draw, and Crocs then draw to Sheriffs too. Like
4 draws in a day.
4 draws in a day. I mean, this just speaks to it. You know, like we'll go on to the table because we need to push the conversation on, but also just speaks to the absolute, like, look at all those draws. Like, that's nuts. Like, Leeds with only 1 draw, and then 2 teams with none. Everyone else has 2 or more. Derby ending with 4 draws. Like, wow. Like,
at least Derby are consistent across their first and second squads. That's all I'm going to say.
Derby went really consistently good drawing. But yeah, like that. I mean, that really shows how like tight this league is, and even more so that Mavericks finish 4th on negative set difference. Like I was looking at that all the way through the season, like, surely this can't last, surely this can't last, surely this can't last. Yes, it bloody did. Finish 4th on minus set difference. That's incredible. You know, they're a great team, so they very much deserve it. Those 9 wins were well thought wins, and fully deserved 4th place. But wow. What a league.
What a league is right.
What a league.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about the Women's Super League. I think there were 3 different league position changes, where you got 2 teams switching position. on the last day. Even here, you had someone switching around on the last day, which is quite impressive. It's good to see that there's still that level of competition going on in the leagues, especially leading up to right to the last day. But yeah, so White Tigers and Wessex going up, Manchester Queen Bees going down, which means there'll be potentially one spot available, maybe more, depending on what happens with other clubs.
Yeah. I was going to say, that's the thing, right? Like, there's a very long gap between seasons now, and
Yeah.
that anything could genuinely happen within that time. It's like, talking earlier with people about, oh, how many teams do we think are going to be in Women's League One next season? How many is there maybe even enough for a Women's League Two? And it's like, there's genuinely no way of knowing. So much could change in the next 7 months that, like, we don't know which teams are going to fold. Clubs have folded in less time than that. Clubs have gone from being perfectly healthy to folding. And other teams have, like, come out of nowhere. And I'm sure we'll see, like, clubs, there's already rumors of certain clubs that are going to launch women's teams in time for next season. They could genuinely, like, spring up out of nowhere and absolutely kill the league next season because they've got long enough to actually get themselves ready for it. So in some ways, that, like, really, really long season break does make things interesting for next season, and also makes our lives a lot harder as podcasters, because we're there like, I don't actually know what it's going to look like. I don't know where anyone's going to be. I don't even know who's going to get promoted or relegated, because maybe some clubs will stop existing, and who knows what's going to happen.
Watch Imperial Uni now go, hang on a second, this could be good practice for our first team. After such a dominant season, going, you know what, we've got September to December to train. Let's put in a first team right now.
Can I just point out something that just clicked in my head? This is going to be our last podcast about League until 2024.
Maybe.
Possibly.
We'll see. Possibly.
Likely.
We'll see. We'll see. There's much to discuss about what the hell happens for the next season.
Yeah. But like that could be insane, In terms of like
guys.
talking about a league meet that's happened. Like we'll be talking about that until 2024. That's mental.
Yeah.
Not saying that's the last podcast. I'm just saying that's the last one until. That's mental. Anyway, sorry, that just clicked in my head as you were talking about that. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. I'll bring us on to the next league then.
Let's do it.
Men's Super League.
Men's Super League.
Go on, take it away, because I don't have anything to say.
No, let's talk about your Rangers prediction at the last podcast. Let's start off with that, shall we?
What, last podcast or like the beginning of the season?
Last podcast. We can do both.
Rangers?
So Nick's prediction, he said it's guaranteed to be Spartans, Meteors, and Rangers top 3. That's what you said. Is exactly how I was going to end.
Did I say
said,
that last
week?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, because I thought
you were like, it's definitely going to be. This is such a boring league. It's definitely going to be Spartans, Meteors, and Rangers.
Maybe, yeah.
I actually
can't remember. Yeah, well, yeah. Like fair play to Beast for getting a draw against Meteors, and also Sheriffs being Rangers. Like, good results there for them.
Sheriffs really good day. They played incredible. That was definitely the best league mate I've seen them play. Like I've said this before, and I remember going to Dave Prestige last year. I think it was last season, and I just went to him and I was like, Sheriffs are the weirdest team in men's Super League by far, because they're either absolutely incredible or incredibly dog shit. Like, I never really see it in between for them. Like, on their day, like, I think the way they played at the last meet, they could have beaten bloody Spartans and Meteors. Like, are definitely at least giving them a really good game. Like, they were really, really good. Some incredible catching, like really well backed up, like disciplined players. I felt like they were a lot more intelligent with their targeting of the opposition. It wasn't just kind of randomized as it sometimes feels like. Like it was actually really, really impressive to watch, especially in the Rangers game. Like I think that result makes Rangers look a bit more in the match than they really were in reality. Like Sheriffs were quite comfortably ahead for, like I say, comfortably, like a few sets ahead for pretty much all the match. Like it never really looked like it was going to be out of their hands at any point. So yeah, if they can keep that up going into next season, like you could definitely see them challenging for a medal for sure.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what happens with Rangers though, because like Rangers have had such a mess season. I think um, I think at the beginning of the season I was somewhat fair with my excitement to see where they end up, but some of the
They
results have
definitely
just
had
been
their
really
opportunity to be in there.
yeah, like some of the results compared to how well they were playing last season. Like I don't know whether it's a case of all the other teams got better or Rangers got you know dropped the ball a little. I think it's probably a mixture of the two
Yeah,
because
I'd agree with that.
bees have looked
I think
fantastic. And
Bees. The big thing with Bees is that they've been really unlucky with how often they've had to change squads due to whether it be injuries or whether it be people being absent. Like that killer squad has changed quite a lot throughout the season. I think there's been about God, it must be hitting like 12 different people that have had to play throughout the season for killers. That is an estimate off the top of my head, to be honest. But there's been a lot of people that have come in and out of that squad. And sometimes that's worked out in workers' favor. Sometimes it's been their demise. Like, but B's men as a whole has really had to like shift their squads quite a bit throughout the season, and that is what's going to kind of keep them in that like third place. Because compared to Meteors or Spartans, like they're starting six and usually one or two subs is being mostly consistent like throughout the entire season, and that does make a big difference. Like if you're changing your starting six, like like pretty much every league mate, which I think Bees have. I'm not even sure they've had the exact same squad going into two league meets in a row this season. Like that does play a part in it. Like you could name Spartans starting six for pretty much every
Skyfall.
set of every game. Well, that's Meteor's pal. But for both of them, like you could name their starting six for pretty much like 90% of the season, and that is definitely where that a bit of the gap will definitely form. Whereas if you had base like best six players on court the entire season, they definitely would have had a few more wins under their belt. I think personally. So it's interesting to see if bees can have a more consistent squad where they would be. But that game against Meteors, considering like for the first few, was it 5 minutes? The yellow card was for both Tim Day, Joe Brown. That fun debacle that played out. It worked out. I think it was a set each in the end. So bees didn't really capitalize on it as much as they would have wanted to. And fair play to Meteors, played really, really well to stay in the game, to allow a full squad to come back in. Bees played an absolute blinder. Like they're really stuck to their game plan, and whenever they like eased into the game a bit more, they started making a lot more hits, and they started making their dodge improved. They made a few big catches in the game, and they didn't get drawn into the chaos as much as the game kind of played out. I was really impressed overall.
Yeah. I would say, like, listening to you just then talking about, like, the number of changes of players between Spartans and Bees, I'd say you were right on half of what you said and maybe slightly wrong on the other half, which is you were right when you said the starting six is the same as Spartans. I do think Spartans have had an interesting kind of looking at their lineups every week, it kind of feels like there's a little guest star position. Like, ooh, who's
Yeah,
the
definitely.
eighth man this time around? But that isn't the person they put on first. It's their
Yeah.
starting. When you said their starting six is the same, I think that's absolutely fair, and I think that's maybe potentially where the difference is that these do have that kind of rotating position in the same way that Spartans do, but they do put that player on first sometimes, and they're more like an equal member of the squad, which is
Fair.
potentially something to reconsider. It's nice, it's lovely as a concept, but a little bit something to reconsider, I think.
I
Viewing
think it would have. I think it as a concept it works fine if you have a consistent 8 throughout the season. It's the fact that if you're going to have a lot of swapping in and out of the squad, that's where that kind of shows a lot. Because not only are you getting not as much game time as you would if you were kind of playing it on the starting six in general, you're then kind of not getting like competitive experience as a squad throughout all the league meets put together.
Yeah.
So that as an overall concept, it works really well if you have the same squad the entire season. But you're only getting like 30% of the game time realistically if you're only turning up to half the league meets kind of thing. You know where I'm trying to come from.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe it is something to consider, especially, well, you're probably going to have to utilize the squads more next season as you're going to be playing 3 matches in a day. And Men's Super League is a very intense play style. There's not really that many teams that play, as we like to call it, the grinder bees method of really slow, drawn out game. Like nobody really plays that in Men's Super League right now. They're usually very fast paced, a lot of like high energy matches. So utilizing the squad will definitely be seeing more, I reckon. It'd be interesting to see how it impacts, the likes of Meteors and Spartans next season.
Yeah.
How they'll be kind of handling it.
And the team's coming up, so Nighthawks and Spartan 2s as well. So how they get into the mix. But yeah, moving on from bees, I do want to talk. Oh, go on then. One more thing. Jesus.
It's not about bees. It's not about bees, but it is about something that was said about 2 minutes ago. So if I wait any longer, then it's going to feel like a really long gap. It was when we were talking about Rangers, and we were talking about like how it sort of feels like they've had a very odd season, and just sort of seemed not quite themselves. I don't know if this is 100% correct. I'm sure Ross will send me an angry message if it isn't. Um, but as a casual viewer and as someone who's not excessively excelling at everything, it does kind of feel watching Rangers as if they are incredibly good in short bursts. And so that's why they
Fair.
win. They're very, very good in these opens, right? And you do sometimes watch some of like the first half of a Rangers game, you're like, oh my God, they're incredible. How could we have ever doubted them? And then they just lose steam. And so that's kind of why I'm wondering, like, when we're talking about this three match structure next time round, is that maybe gonna make that even worse for Rangers? Is it an energy thing, or is it just like is it a physical energy thing, or is it a mental energy thing? Because I suspect it's a little bit of both. But if it's more physical energy problem wise, like they're running out of steam physically, then that's going to be awful for them in a 3 match structure. Whereas if it's mental energy, then I don't know, it will probably just be exactly the same unless they can fix whatever it is that means that they can stay really focused for 15 minutes and then just get a little bit dozy in the second half sometimes.
I
Some
think
really
it
interesting.
could be.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's going to be interesting from a Rangers point in terms of how it affects their squad selection. Because if you got 3 games, I think it's fair to go through a nine team selection, which they've done once, I think, this season. And they do have 9 first team players, in my opinion. And I think that's affected their play style a bit. I think Rangers have gone for a bit more of a we are going to make one cut or one change and we'll stick with it for the rest of the season because it wasn't working well at the beginning of the season. Admittedly, they had the toughest start to the league you could have with Meteors and Spartans in one game or one day, but I think they went for, and I think it's a method that I prefer, which is if we're going to make a change, this is the point that we make a change and we stick with it and we work as a team to make sure we get it. But I think next season they'll have a bigger squad that they have to rotate through, and I think that'll actually benefit from that. They don't have to change play styles as much or change their personnel as much, and I think that will actually benefit them to gel as a whole, and maybe work to their favour. I agree with the whole, they are a short burst team. They are a really high energy team, and they really know how to take their chances. But if we're doing half an hour games, I think it'll be interesting to see how that one falls out, and if there are any rule changes that to the system next year with game length, because we know Euros are so. Not saying that they will, because based on the reasons why we've moved out of St George's Park for the other leagues, I can't imagine they have space to do 30-minute longer than 30-minute
40,
matches. But
yeah. It's actually a really interesting point talking about the mental side of it for Rangers, because I think I kind of agree with the short bursts point, but I also think it's just a confidence thing. Like whenever they're doing this high energy short burst thing, it's usually because they're dominating doing it. It's whenever a team kind of challenges them that they tend to sit back and start like losing their confidence in that play style a bit. So it was actually a really interesting point that you brought that up. I don't necessarily see it as a physical thing, because I think in terms of that, I do think a lot, like all of them could play that high intensity game for the
They're
entire match.
really
Like,
athletic team, so it seems
yeah,
bizarre they're the
I
ones who run out of time and energy.
yeah. So I would be very surprised if it was the physical side of it.
Yeah.
From looking at their squad, it very well could be. Like, obviously, I don't have like their bleep test scores on me at all times. You know what I mean?
God damn it,
But
Colin! Did you not know
just from watching them,
you are our athletic
we need to get
correspondent?
like the tops that footballers wear whenever
Oh,
they're
yeah.
doing their training and stuff. We need to get dodgeballers wearing that. That'd be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
But like, they're definitely like that high energy, high, like really aggressive game. But I think that is based around confidence, and whenever they're on form, making their hits, it just makes them want to go even more aggressive. And like, it works whenever you're making the hits, and if you're not making the hits, you're kind of pushed back, and they're bidding you off. Like in that Sheriffs game, they tried playing that aggressive game, but Sheriffs were surviving it and going back at them and just picking them off one by one and finding them in those like positions where, because I think they handled Tamas really well. Like, I don't think Tamas got into that game at all, which took a huge weapon out of the Rangers' arsenal. And then everybody else just kind of waited for those moments where they were vulnerable, and yeah, like they took the game, and I think they were, like, as I said earlier on, like comfortably in the lead for the majority of the match.
Yeah. Two other things I want to pick up on Super League before we go into the table is, well, in fact, do one thing, then we'll go on to the table and bring up the other. Wessex. In terms of the bet, I said I would clarify what my things were, and I never did. But I did say on the day that if they lost to Spartans by less than 10 set points, and they beat Storm 2, then I would wear kit on the show. But they didn't do that. They did manage to beat Storm 2 though, so they did manage to get a win before the end of the season. So very proud of them for that.
I do want to bring up one more point before we
go on then.
I do want to talk about Derby, because I think Derby had a really good day.
I was gonna talk about them, but I was gonna talk about them in like respect to the whole league. Like,
oh, you want to do the whole league? That's fine. We can move on to the next page then.
I do not want to forget about Derby, because
no, because I think especially for the game against Meteors, they deserve a lot of credit for how that played out.
But to be one set behind Sheriffs in 7th, like I was gonna say, like, they have reason to be very, very proud and are happy with how this season's gone. Like, they have done remarkably well.
Yeah, absolutely.
For their first season in, like, incredibly well, putting some insane results there, like losing to Meteors by 1 set, going the distance with Rangers both times, like, doing really well.
Set, I think it was 1 set against Bees as well. 1 or 2 sets.
Like, they're really, really great team. Like, really done well. Just unlucky with a few of the results. Like, to finish 9-9, like, that shows you how they're winning some, they're losing some. They're really, really in it. And I think with how they were starting, being the last undefeated team, as it were, I reckon they'll feel a little bit disappointed on the last day to drop by 1. Like, they couldn't really have asked for more, because they won their other game, and then they lost to Meteors by 1 set, and that 1 set is what dropped them to 7th. But really, really well done. Like,
yeah, in terms of the last day, Sheriffs had an incredible end to the season, and that was their strongest performance. That scraped them an extra place, and fair play to Sheriffs for it. Derby overall, like, if they could keep improving at that rate, because I know myself at the start of the season, I didn't think they'd be 2 points off of 5th. I wouldn't have put them anywhere near that kind of category, but they've really come together as a team. Some of the recruitment they've done this past year, they've picked up some really good players. And if Dan Ryan sticks around for next season as well, there's a starting 6 there that's going to be really dangerous from their wings perspective. And if they keep that discipline level that we know that they really drill into all their teams, all their players know the style of play that they're going for, it could really come together next season, and they could be a very difficult they really are a very difficult team to beat, but they take it up to the next level and really like nail down their decision making, especially. I definitely put them as a team that could surprise people next season with where they finish off.
I just want to say as well, like one thing that I don't think I'm not sure if you got to see it, Zoe, but in the derby game against Meteors, um,
Yeah.
someone may have to correct me, but Tom Bell's I think 1v4 to win the set against Meteors. Insane, like just so like such a great talent Derby have got. Really come on leaps and bounds from when he played at Virtue last year. Like just in one season, he's a great player. We know he is, and he's really shown it this year. And Derby definitely guided him to that play style and really get to his ability. I know Derby, especially the women, like fangirl over him, and he is a really good player. It'll be interesting to see what happens next year with his development and how far he can go. But yeah, I don't think many
Ryan
players.
Ellis as well is another one from the University of Derby who's
Yeah.
had an incredible season with them this year.
Oh yeah, massively so. But yeah, not many players that can 1v4 Meteors.
Yeah. No, that's insane. Like that would be incredible for anyone to do. So.
And he wasn't even
Bees
picking him
couldn't,
off.
Bees couldn't even do 6v4.
Yes. But yeah, really, really well played. But yeah, Wessex and Storm 2. See you next season. I think we knew this going into this, but yeah, one last question on this one. With Spartans winning the second year in a row for Men's Super League, they've won Women's Super League. Is this the start, do we think, or not the start, but like we know how good they are, but the formal start of a dynasty for Spartans, do you reckon?
Ooh. It's a very good question. So much of it's going to be down like who plays where next season. Like this isn't like other sports where you kind of know who's going where. Like we're 7 months away from when the next from the start of the season kind of happens. Like people can move for jobs, people could like relocate for one reason or another. Clubs could fold, disband, whatever. Like it's so difficult to guess. Like it very well could be the start of something massive for Spartans, kind of become like taking over Meteors as like the team that wins every match. Like they literally lost their very first game of the season and then went on to go on a 17 win streak.
Yeah, I mean, so
like pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I raise it because like I know yeah everyone can move around like that we know that's the thing in dodgeball, but realistically Meteor's been at top for a while until last season or so. Bedford Mighty Eagles top of the women's game, undisputed view. We've also said Austrian women as well. Like I know that's the nationals team, but like another team that are like undisputedly the best team, right? Like we do see them in dodgeball pop up, and this would probably be, I think, the first scenario where we're seeing a club wholeheartedly potentially start a run of domination. Because yes, I agree. Like it depends where people move around, but also like it's not like Spartans are lacking for depth in either of their teams.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Colm, talking about like players moving around and all that, and how we don't know what's going to happen over the next 7 months. The thing that is different for us based up north versus those in the Midlands is that we essentially just play. You play for where you live. Like that is what happens. Whereas Spartans, one of the funnier things like watching them this season is the number of players that have started playing for Spartans and started going regularly to Spartans trainings that do not live in Leamington Spa and sometimes don't even live anywhere near at all, like are driving 2 hours plus to get to trainings.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. That's different. That's not really something that we see that much in dodgeball. And so it does kind of that's about this, whole mythos, I guess, of Spartans, where they've really built up this image of themselves as a very strong team because of their coaching, because of their mindset. And so people actually want to go train there because they think that the training is going to make them individually better players. And then because they're at those trainings and they're like, well, I'd really like to compete for this team as well. that's not the same as a lot of other clubs have, and so it does put Spartans in quite a uniquely strong position where they can attract talent, which isn't something Dodgeball has normally. This ability to
No,
attract
you're right.
talent. We don't transfer for money. We transfer because of jobs, but in this case, people do transfer because of the fact that they get to
Potential.
play for Spartans, the potential of playing for Spartans. And that means that we're looking at the Spartans team that, yeah, you're right, Nick. They're very, very strong, especially in the men's winning the league. But more importantly, their twos are coming up really, really strong into Super League as well, which we'll get onto. And that's a Super League quality twos. That's insane as far as your ability to hold on to that crown the following year, because it means that if you do have players that leave, if something happens and some awful accident happens, because I don't really know if any of those ones players are currently looking at retiring or moving away from Spartans. Like I can't think of who it would be from the men's ones. But if somehow a spot opens up in that squad, it's fine. They'll fill it with a Super League quality player because they have a whole team of Super League quality players that's just as a backup. So it's tricky because, yeah, I would normally agree with you and be like, we don't know what's going to happen. But at the same time, Spartans are in a very unique position, and it's slightly, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, and I think it leads to some interesting emotions from other teams where you're kind of looking at that and going, that's weird to see so many players not play for their home teams. And I don't know, it's new. It's a new one for Dodgeball, and I think that's just something we have to get used to as a concept, and get used to the idea of players not necessarily playing for the teams that they are local to. It's a step that had to happen eventually, I guess.
It's a very interesting point. Very interesting point.
Men's League One.
Men's League One!
Hour and a half in, and we've only got onto Men's League One. This is why we're doing a live one and we're starting early, because we know we were going to talk a lot about all the games and everything that's happened this season, because there's been a lot. Yeah, so Men's League One, what a season it's been here. Big win for Spartans 2 beating Bedford Mighty Eagles. At that point, I think essentially securing themselves in promotional spot. Barring, well, almost securing it. If MK didn't fumble the bag with Rangers. But yeah, I don't know which game to start on. Colm, I don't know where would you want to start? Any thoughts? So I could talk for days about how we played.
We can start. You can get that out of the way.
Go on. Seeing how much we talked about bees, like, I'll probably sort of explain it more when we get to the table. But like, Leeds has been such an up and down year, like so all over the place with our results. Like, to come out of the season knowing that we didn't lose to Spartans 2 and they're going to play in Super League, right? We drew twice to them. Like, yeah, we didn't beat them, but like 2 draws, happily take that with some of the losses that we've taken elsewhere. Like, the league week before getting absolutely pasted by Bedford Mighty Eagles. Happily take those 2 draws. But I guess that's sort of like, a microcosm of how League One plays out in terms of, yeah, there are games where in other leagues where everyone can take points off each other or whatever, but like, this is one where it really is, you just don't know who's going to turn up on the day. You really don't. Like Rangers 2 beating MK at the same time as us drawing Spartans 2. Like, if we had won that, I think that would have kept the door open for MK. But as soon as they got that 1 point, that was it. Spartans 2 were going to get promoted. But what a crazy league! I've really enjoyed playing it, and I'm kind of curious how other people have enjoyed watching it. Because yeah, like, nice win to start the day against Virtue Empire, but that draw against Spartans 2, it was a really fun game, really fun game, and came down to the very last set, and not a set that we lost. It was like, you say it's doing a Leeds Zoe in terms of what we did in the women's, but I don't think it's just a Leeds thing. I think it can just be, that's how the games play out sometimes, and we've done all right this season compared to last season in terms of winning.
I think that's just Nick in denial there.
Well, yeah, I'll go back and watch all the Leeds footage.
You've done great. Well done, buddy.
Thank you. I'll pat myself on the back.
All right.
But yeah,
you were the second best Northern team in the league this year.
Yeah, we were. Although we shared results, Colm. We shared results.
We did. It's funny you mentioned that you didn't get beat by Spartans too. Either did we. We
Yeah,
beat them and drew with them as well.
nice. But that's kind of the nuts thing, isn't
Like
it? Right? Like bees have done that, and they finished what, fifth?
fifth, yeah.
Yeah, they finished fifth, and what, Spartans 2 are the ones that go and play Super League next year.
Yeah, the thing is that, and I've said this all season, is that Worker Bees have had the potential to be a promoted team. Like the ability was definitely there. We just lost like our heads in the big games, the ones that really decided whether we were, a team fighting for top tier or a team fighting for mid table. I was really disappointed to miss out on, the end of the season due to my injury. Um, so watching it from afar was a bit painful. I think it was a big loss of a leader on court. Um, which definitely for a lot of the bees lads, they tend to prefer having um, you know, a level-headed person kind of making a lot of the decisions, which is something that we're like kind of working on. Um, and there a lot of the lads like stepped up towards the end of the season on that front, which was really nice to see. So overall, I'd much rather take fifth than like last season whenever we were in a relegation battle, going into the last last meet of the season. So I'll definitely take the progress and continue working hard with the lads to fight for a promotion spot next year, because that's definitely what we're fighting for. We know we've got the talents at bees to be fighting for bigger things than fifth place. We're definitely eyeing up a medal and promotion in terms of our goals for next year. I can tell you that much from a worker bee standpoint. And as I'll probably not be playing for the majority of this season, I will definitely be in the coach's box for the season, helping the lads out. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll be a really interesting league next year with who's going to be coming up, which we'll get into later on, and the fact that we've got Wessex and Storm 2 dropping down. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of match the standards, because I think that'll be what's really interesting is seeing Spartans 2 moving up and Norwich moving up. Norwich, who is that two or three in a row now that they've won the leagues that they've been in. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they move up into Super League and how they settle. Will they kind of settle similar to Derby, where they pick up a lot of wins and cause a lot of, quote unquote upsets, based on kind of like how people would rank them? Yeah, I think both leagues will be a lot more interested in next season. And I feel like the kind of leagues are balancing out a lot more now, especially with the split off that's about to happen too.
When you say a lot more interesting, this year has been mental.
Oh,
Like,
I agree, but I think it'll be a lot tighter
yeah.
throughout next season.
I mean, I hope not, because this year was very tight. I feel like all the way across the board. I think.
Yeah,
Um,
a lot of anomaly results,
yeah.
but
Well, you say anomaly. I think you just have to expect that that's the norm. No, there's no day off. There's no game off in.
no, definitely not, definitely not, and that's where about like my speeches about mentality play a big part, especially in leagues like this. Like there was some games that we went in there knowing that we should have won, that we fumbled, and that's what caused us to go from potential promotion spot to fifth place.
Yeah.
But we beat Leeds, so that's all that matters.
Yeah.
You were working your way out to that. I was wondering where you were going to end your sentence.
I mean, I do want to say like one team in particular that sort of stood out to me is MK. I think at the beginning of the season with the team, the players that left and the absolute reshuffle they had, um, to be until the very end with a fighting chance of going straight back up to Super League, I think is very impressive. And they've played so well this season. It's been good fun playing them. So yeah,
they were a really tough team to beat.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing them again next season, because personally, I feel like we, as a club, team left so much out on the court left to play against them. But yeah, definitely a well done, to rebound back from all the changes that they went through. And yeah, Bedford Mighty Eagles. I think they didn't get a third place this time, which is we all thought that they might manage to clinch it again, but they didn't. Just outside of medaling position this time. And Rangers 2, despite their the 2 games that they had to forfeit, finishing 6th. And yeah, do we want to talk about Thunder Dodge actually getting relegated?
Somebody's folded. We all know it.
I don't
every
think
year. Is that like 3 years in a row where they've actually like end up in the relegation zone
Yeah, something
in the
like that.
in the same league? I'm pretty sure this is 3 seasons in a row where they've ended up relegated, and then previously somebody's folded to allow them to stay in the league. I'm waiting for somebody to fold and
It always
get rid of the
happens.
art, like for them to stay up. And I'm just waiting for it. It's gonna happen.
But yeah,
I'm literally looking at the table trying to guess who it would be.
Leeds.
yeah, us with our two.
And that's our big announcement tonight, folks.
By the way, no, definitely not. Although training is not on next Tuesday. Come back, come out with But yeah, final league positions. Yeah, interestingly that there was no changes of places in this league going to the last game. But last session.
Very well could have been. Like
yeah, very well could have been. Especially with Sheriffs 2 with the 2 games that they had, it came down to Bees, how Bees were playing, and Sheriffs being Bees and Thunder Dodge not. Really,
even
Thunder Dodge are going to get relegated.
Even if Bees had beaten Sheriffs, like they would have just stayed up anyway. Would have been that big of a deal, but yeah, that like from first to third, it was definitely very tight for the majority of the season. Like Norwich had a few games that they showed the experience and the quality in their squad, pushing through against very close games with Spartans, MK. I think what the first Beagles game was a close one as well, if memory serves. It might have been somebody else, but they kept coming through. 2 draws and a loss. If could have easily been 3 losses, and we'd be talking about the likes of Spartans 2 or MK clinching promotion instead of MK. Bedford were very lucky to lose Arnie for a majority of the season. They definitely could have been up there had they had their full squad available for the entire season. That kind of messed up a few of their results going towards the end. Workers definitely had plenty of opportunities to be up there as a promotion battling team. There's at one point where a few people thought we might have got promoted, up until the second January League meet. Leeds had some very, very big games against the likes of Spartans, against Bedford, where you clinched a draw and didn't even know it until after the final whistle had blown. And Sheriffs too. That last league meet, they had Dave's Prestige, Ben Paddock, I think somebody else that sort of played in around the first team. Like if they can have a squad like that going into next season, like they'll be flying up the table because that was a very strong squad. Yeah, they're with the teams that are coming up. It'll be a very interesting league next season. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it all kind of pans out, and whether teams can like build on the momentum that they had this season. Be a very, very exciting future for League One, I reckon.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely gonna be an interesting one.
Is that set difference, the Rangers set difference? Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, because they got the 2
situation again.
Yeah.
No, they had the 2. They had the 2 forfeit
walkovers. Yeah.
Oh yeah, shit.
Because of the transfer.
Yeah.
So you really should be looking at it as -14 rather than -74.
They also could have easily got up the table to 4th place had those games been in their favour.
Well, they would have definitely been in 5th because they would have had the win against Thunder Dodge.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of nuts. Like, looking at the set difference there, and down to 7th. If you take Rangers 2 as the results they got, you're probably looking at -14, maybe even higher because they won that game. So around that 0 mark, all the way down to 7th. That's how, almost all on positive set difference, or very close to 0 down to 7th is really quite impressive, I think.
Yeah.
And again, this is a situation where 9th with eight points is not getting out of relegation. Yeah, we'll get onto it later, but it's going to be a bit screwy next year with the bottom 3 being involved in that fight.
But
I'm really looking forward to seeing how that all actually works.
Yeah. Not much else to say, I don't think. Just congratulations on the Nighthawks on a really good season, finishing on the high there with only 1 loss.
Yeah.
And good looking Super League.
That'll be so interesting to see Nighthawks in Super League next season. That'll be a interesting one.
Yeah. On to Men's League
Definitely.
2. I honestly, the thing that blows my mind about Men's League 2 is how the season finished for Ronda. It's like they listened to ours and Neutral Zone podcast, and they decided, you know what, we're going to try and screw with the set difference a little bit, but didn't quite fully send to it. They half bought into it because they lost to Storm 3 and they lost to Silverbacks 2 in the last 2 league meets. Kind of surprising considering how dominant they've been this season.
Yeah, I was the Wessex result really surprised me.
Yeah, one set, yeah.
Never would have seen Wessex being so close to them, because I think they finished near bottom, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe they just kind of took the foot off the gas a bit whenever things were looking very comfortable at the top. But they're a team I'm definitely really interested to see how they kind of settle into League One next year. Be very showing as to whether kind of the leagues are balancing out as they're kind of been intended to over the past few years. But we know how well they can play. They have, for 90% of the season, have massively dominated teams and never give a lot of teams a look in. There has been a couple of close games, but not that many, and the anomalies have been against teams that are I've been up there fighting with them in terms of Silverbacks and Storm 3. Whenever we discussed Ronda versus Storm 3 previously, we knew that was going to be a tight game. We knew what they could bring to the table. So yeah, they're a squad as a general that if they can stay the same and keep working on their core skills, they could settle in well into League One and give teams a really close match. Interesting, very interesting to watch.
I think the biggest one for me is Silverbacks. Coventry having the second team getting into League One. I think that's really impressive. Really good to see. Their first team are settled into Super League. I think is a fair way to say. They're not. They're not making strides into the top mid table or anything, but they're definitely not bottom. But yeah, their second team getting into League One is definitely a big win for them. And Storm 3, it's tough that they had a really tough time in League One before, but they definitely have the potential to bounce back and reform, because it's been a mostly new team. I feel they've had quite a bit of a change, and they've sort of, I feel quite settled down as a team as the season's gone on, and really shown that they have that potential to really get those good wins and get good results under their belt. But yeah, surprised that Raptors. I say surprised. Raptors are a good team. They nearly got promoted the season before. Didn't get the win against them. Yeah, some good teams in this league. It's going to be interesting next year as they get disbanded into North and South.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, as far as the actual results of that league meet as opposed to the table, which I'll have more to say on in a second. I think the Soldiers, that is Soldiers, right? Third team, yep.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at remembering. I've been in Manchester for years. It just Soldiers, there, the 10-12, it does kind of feel as if they're a little bit allergic at this point to actually winning a match, or so it's curious to see next season whether that's something that maybe just holding on to the end of a match and closing things out could be quite interesting to see for them. And then yeah, that Wessex match against Ronda, do think Ronda obviously struggled in this meet. I think you're right. I think they took their foot off the pedal. They were kind of prematurely celebrating, and sure, why not? Like, you might as well. But kudos to Wessex, because I think they have at times at the start of the season seemed very shaky and uncertain and quite young sometimes, just in their mindsets. Whereas by the end of the season, then it kind of seemed as if they'd grown a little bit in confidence, and I'm curious to see how they fare in the new league structure. I do think, that there were a couple of movements as far as players moving around within Wessex, moving from ones down to twos, that I think has instilled a bit more confidence in their twos. And I wouldn't be surprised, seeing them do well in whatever the new, however it works in the new system. I'm not 100% sure what's going on there, so I'm sure you guys have a much better
I mean,
understanding
I
of it,
can
since
tell you they'll
I
be
don't
in the south.
understand it. It's the South.
They'll be
Yeah.
they'll be in South One for sure. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But it depends if there'll be a second South League or not. But we'll get to that in the Q and A at the end, if we get onto the Q and A at the rate we're going. But I just last result I'll point out is Carmarthen getting a solid 19-5 win over Phantoms. Like, I think this is actually finally when Wizards actually did something that Wizards were expected to do, with the players that we know they've got. They actually played as a solid team.
I've never said that before.
No.
I don't know why. Yeah, no, like you said, Carmarthen definitely have the ability in their squad, and there's a few times where they definitely showed it. I think overall finishing mid-table was probably a fair placement, and I'm really interested to see kind of how they settle into the new league structure next year. I'm really excited for whenever they actually release like all the leagues and how the entire format's going to play out, because there's a lot of teams that, if depending on who goes where, could make like the kind of playoffs day that's going to end up happening like a really fun day with some really interesting fixtures. So I'm actually really excited for this kind of new structure to come into play, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. We'll see.
God, you're so indecisive.
No, it's the reason. Right, okay. We'll get onto it later. The reason is like, for me, I've witnessed how it's affected rugby, and I'm curious how it's going to affect dodgeball. That's all.
Okay, we'll get onto it later. But here's my answer.
But here's my answer. By the way, getting it early. But yeah, it does mean though that Ronda finished with sets 4 with over 300, but didn't get over 200 set difference. Sad times. But yeah, as pointed out in the chat, congratulations for making it to British Champs.
Yeah, massive for Wales. Sorry, for Ronda. There's
Yeah.
2 Welsh squads. No congratulations in order for Carmarthen. Sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
The magic is gone from them.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ.
In other news, Harry Potter's on Netflix.
But yeah, another league that the mid-table got kind of interesting towards the end. I definitely thought Storm 3 would be comfortably third, but let a few games against Mustangs and Raptors.
Yeah. Especially like a few meets into the season, I was expecting them to be in contention for promotion spot.
Yeah.
So not only from them to be like quite a distance away, but I think they kind of suffered from the whole because the first team had to pull up a few seconds, which meant the thirds end up going to the second team quite a bit. So they were just kind of the main victims of that kind of promotion in terms of being the third team, which is just something you kind of have to deal with. Unfortunately, that I think it was like the mid-season where that all kind of happening, and that's where they end up being like drifting away from Ronda and Silverbacks. Because like you see at the end there, they put up some really good matches towards the end. They were the ones to beat Ronda and Ronda's unbeaten streak. So yeah, if assuming a lot of people either move to London or they kind of improve in the squad they already have, like they could easily see them doing quite well in the new league structure next season.
Yeah, definitely. Could be an interesting one for sure. Yeah, not much else to say on this league, to be honest. It's been interesting to watch. It would be more interesting if there was promotion and relegation existed next year, because that mid-table could look very spicy next year. Um,
Mm.
with if there was the teams coming down and the teams coming up that would be going there, I think that would be a very, very competitive league. But onto the new system, we say. Um, Anything else before we go on to Men's League 3?
Is Wales in the south of England or the north of
Yes.
England?
Yeah, it'd be
South.
likely to be considered south. Well, obviously it depends like what the teams kind of pan
Well,
out.
they're in the south of Wales.
I'd be
aren't
very,
they, right?
I'd be very surprised. Yeah, I'd be very surprised if they're not in the Southern League.
But enjoy that massive trip to Berkshire. That's gonna be fun.
And good luck to Rhondda and British champs as well, because I think they're the Welsh team representative.
Yeah. No, huge. And if D&D is anything to go by, then they should. D&D is nothing to go by, though. But that is how it works out, when you do the mascots be mascots. I'm pretty sure it's Rhondda.
Nerds.
Right, moving on. Oh wait, wrong thing. I have to.
He pulled it.
Results,
Audio
but,
listeners, you're the only ones that are following along
Come on, we
correctly
all knew
now.
this was going to happen. We all knew this was going to happen. Calm down, calm down. Right, bring it in, guys. Bring it in. Come on, refocus. Bring the energy. Right. Men's League 3.
Are we meant to talk about Men's League 3 more? Is that what have we been?
I don't think so.
I thought we were just going to skip Men's League. I thought the people asked to skip Men's League 3.
Well, we just didn't get asked, did we? So.
Can't believe nobody asked for more Men's League 3.
Yeah, no one asked for more Men's League 3.
Disgraceful.
I will just say, more London Saints. Really good job for them. Really great outing for their first season. I definitely thought that Bovines were going to seal this league up, but then I remembered how Bovines organise themselves. So, why did I expect that? Why did I expect that? So yeah, well done Saints for actually being the organised good team of Men's League 3. So yeah, big result for them. And yeah, hopefully continue to grow next season in the South League. And I assume we'll be in South League 1 with the potential of making their way into that fight for promotion to League 1.
Yeah, this is part of the reason why I'm really interested to see how the league structures and all work, because obviously it's going to be dependent on the number of teams for both North and South and geographical locations around that. So I'm really interested to see how it all pans out. Saints have definitely got a number of players who could match the quality of like a League 2 team. So yeah, good luck, best luck to them. They've played some really good games for what I've seen. I haven't seen a lot of footage from them, I'll be perfectly honest. I've only seen bits and pieces throughout the season, but there's definitely enough potential there to have a good run at the Southern Conference League, whatever it's going to be called officially.
Yeah, they're the type of team that are going to really benefit from wall to wall. I can tell
Massively,
you that.
yeah.
They're gonna love it. So yeah, I think like the other results that stand out to me is Bovines doing Bovines things and drawing to Mavericks. I mean, I say that Mavericks have been an incredibly good team this year, like an incredibly good team, and they've just got better and better. They were robbed last season because of some of the COVID incidents that happened. It's really tough to see, but definitely a team on the up and up, and we'll see what happens with them going forward. Because we know that Saints only just pulled off a win against them, and that was because they underestimated how good Mavericks were, and I'm sure Mavericks in the North League will really ruffle some feathers there as well. But yeah, the other games kind of went in the way that we expected it. Nighthawks beating Crocs was a bit of a surprise, I think, because Crocs have been solidly third in the league, but yeah, I wonder if they had a few injuries that they were dealing with or whatever for the final league meet. But yeah, good league all round, I think, and some teams that I think will actually benefit from this North-South divide, because it will give them more opportunity to actually attack for that promotion spot in League 1 and take on, have some actual competition that's sort of right for their level. I think
Yeah,
it'll be good to do that for some of these teams. It sort of hinders more the League Two teams than than League Three,
a
but I
bit
mean,
more.
in terms
Yeah,
of balancing it, I think it's going to balance them out quite nicely.
yeah. That's like I'm really intrigued to see how some of these teams match against League Two, because there's times where I watch it and I'm kind of like, oh, they're like miles apart, and then there's other matches with the same teams where I'm just like, you know what, I could see them doing some damage to some of the teams in League Two. Like it's going to be a big experience for a lot of these players, and I think a really exciting one's going to be to see how Norwich Nighthawks second team kind of manages to handle this whole thing, because obviously with more matches per meet, they might have to bring in more people into the squad, and how will that affect the growth of of their second teams and stuff like that. Same with Raptors potentially, if they're, because I don't know whether the regional leagues are going to be doing 3 matches per meet as well. I don't know if that's been announced yet. Are they doing
I
two
think
per
no, I think
meet?
it's two per meet. Two per meet.
Two per meet. Okay, so yeah, they
Because
can manage the smaller
they
squads
start
and
sooner
get
than
through the day.
I think they start
Yeah.
this side of Christmas, so I
Are
can't
they
remember.
actually going to start this
They
season?
do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, you know, overall the like league standings of this, it won't make a massive impact other than who gets first, second, and third in terms of medals. But in terms of the overall future of these teams for next season, it's actually a really exciting time for them, because they can, you know, if they begin to develop and grow throughout the off season, there's definitely potential that they could match up and become potential promotion contenders for next season, and go from League Three to League One pretty quickly would be quite an achievement.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's doable.
Definitely,
I think it's doable.
Yeah.
new structure definitely makes it a possibility for them.
Yeah, onto that final table. Saints taking the crown with bovines and crocs following up.
Holy Mother of God, who expected that?
Well, yeah, but
What a surprising league.
there's a lot of
to
good
be fair,
teams in there.
we were definitely taking bovines at the start of the season. Let's be fair.
Yeah. No, we were definitely.
100%.
But
We called the top two pretty early, and we called who was going to be mid table.
I thought Crocs would be in with a shout for the top two, but yeah, I think Saints and Bovines. I think we called quite early.
It kind of panned out how I expected. If I had to tell me to like guess the entire league at the start of the season, I probably would have put Nighthawks 2 above Mavericks, but that would have been about it.
Yeah, but Mavericks have been so good this season. Like, yeah, I'm genuinely excited to watch them next year.
I really like the Mavericks' social media as well. Like, team-wise, really funny team to watch anyway. But like their actual social media stuff always is just so like warm and lovely, and they just seem like such a happy club. And it's so nice. I don't know. It makes me really happy just looking at it. It's like, oh, they look like they're having a nice
So
time.
is that the women's team you're playing for next year then?
No, she's gone to Valkyries, right?
I'm gonna relaunch Valkyries.
Patent pending. Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a good league, and I think the biggest takeaway from this for each team is how they played this season has been good. It has been competitive, but each team has played at their level. I think that's very fair to say, but also that they should be really excited for next year, in the fact that they're going to have more opportunity to play the teams that probably will give them the right level of competition, and it will balance out more. But yeah, are we okay moving on to Men's League 4?
Yes.
Do we have to get permission from a certain somebody to move on from League 3?
I don't know.
Well, no one's in the chat, so
Yeah, just us guys. Yeah, they reached the 2-hour mark, and they're like, oh god, Jesus, just don't shut up.
start Men's League 3, and the figures very quickly.
Considering all of our podcasts have been over 2 hours, I'm surprised people have asked us to talk more.
Yeah, that is the thing.
Fair play.
Yeah. What do we have to say about this?
Congrats,
congratulations to Essex. in terms
I
of
expect
results,
to see you feature in an episode of Towie soon.
sure.
I'm always happy for more teams with the word sex in them to do well in these. It's so much fun. And it's the eternal sadness of my life that Wessex no longer wear those socks that they would roll down to remove the WES from their name. Like Dodgeball lost something that day, I think.
For
That
next
was
year, I'll just
so
be.
unexpected.
I'll just refer to them as East Sikhs and West Sikhs. The old English style.
As far as Dodgeball though, no comment. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well done.
I think the only thing to say, and I think this comes more onto the actual table more than anything, is I have to give a shout out to Chippenham. Massive thanks for ball retrieving for us at the weekend. It was really very much appreciated. Things going on 6. You asked for a shout out, you're getting a shout out. But you also
exchanging favours shout outs.
Yeah,
He's a sellout. We know this.
Come on, you've met me before, Zoe. Come on.
He sold out to Wessex, and now he's selling out to Chippenham.
Yeah, you know, why not?
You know what? I'll be really nice and give Leeds a shout out for only losing by a set, considering they actually haven't won a game all season.
Our set difference against Essex is -2 sets, so -4 set points. That's our set difference against Essex in both games.
It was an interesting Leeds squad. I think some people pointed it out as
I'm really glad you remembered because I kind of forgot for a second. Yeah.
No, I'm not letting it get away with this.
Yeah. I definitely. I think I was the one that brought this up in the chat. I think it was pointed out to me by Adam Badley. I'll give him a wee shout out here. So certain players from League One got moved down to League 4 within 7 days. Did you have a bad training session in between, Nick?
No, like genuinely, availability and injuries has absolutely ripped. Availability due to injuries and also availability due to exam season has really ruined the availability of that team quite significantly. So we needed to field a team, and because it was against first and second, it was probably better to bring 6, even if it wasn't a bit of a ragtag 6 and just randomly hastily put together, than send 4 all the way down from Leeds, which we probably may or may not have done. Might as well send it and have a good game, and it didn't make a difference in the end anyway. So we just wanted to make sure there was a good game on. Seeing as everyone's travelling all that way to go play some dodgeball in League 4. I think I'll go onto the table because I think this is actually more interesting to talk about than the results itself. And specifically, Chippenham have had a really good 2023 year. I think they put it on their social media. They're undefeated in 2023. They did a really good job, really good comeback. And I think I've talked about them quite a bit, but just massive shout out to Brayford Beast for being an absolute nut job bunch of people. The fact that you're playing Lincoln, playing for Lincoln in Bucks, playing for Lincoln in mixed, the mixed league, playing for Brayford in men's league. I know we have a dodgeball problem, but maybe you guys do too. Just because that's an absolute fuck ton of dodgeball. And I'm impressed that you guys have managed to keep it going throughout the season. So, big shout out to them. And the big thing for me as well is Essex have won. Yeah, they're undefeated, but their set difference compared to everyone else, they're only on set 76, and they've lost 0, but they've drawn 3. Spartans 3 have lost 3, and Chargers have lost 3 as well. With a significantly better set difference than Essex. Having played them now, I can say it speaks volumes for their play style. They are going to love not wall to wall. It really will suit them as well. They'll love that. But yeah, really, really impressive bunch of players, and all really good catches as well. So really, really good to see. Good games all round. I think there's been a lot of good competition from a lot of the teams. And I know Spartans give a bit of a shout out to them for their first team and their women's team coming along to support the Spartans 3 and really provide that coaching support and that real club feel and community at league meet. I know we get it at St George's Park to make sure that that's there in Coventry as well. It's really great to see.
I'm definitely excited to see how Essex do next season, because didn't they do quite well in British Open as well? Didn't they get to the finals of the plate, or am I misremembering that?
Yeah, I think they did. They beat
Yeah.
Bath, I think.
They beat Bath, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's like really interesting as far as we've all seen what Bath Bombers can do in an open format especially. So interesting to see how Essex fare in, like you said, outside of a wall as well. Quite interesting.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think a few of these teams will be quite interesting to see next year. If Brayford still exists next year as well, because I know they've been reliant on Lincoln players. Chippenham obviously will still be there, but they'll be in the south side of things, so will Essex. I think only potentially Leicester will be in the north, other than Leeds, obviously. Oh, and Brayford, obviously, Lincoln. But yeah, could be an interesting one next year. We'll see what happens in Sheffield and in Berkshire. But yeah, that's the end of the season.
That's it. Oh my God.
That's the end of the season. We
Like,
did it. We did it.
We've done it. Do we want to do the Q&A now?
Yeah, we can do it.
Quick, do we think we can get through it? I don't think there were that many. I think a lot of the questions we've kind of already covered off anyway.
Yeah, in general,
So,
I guess so. I mean, the big one that was asked several times was, what are our thoughts on the new league system? In terms of both League 2 downwards being scrapped, there being a playoff scenario for the North South and the bottom three from League 1 being involved in it, and then also looking at 3 matches per league meet at St George's Park next year. I'll start. Like, my thoughts is that it's gonna be good for teams in League 3 and 4 because they're gonna, it will rebalance everything. You'll see more teams of similar ability playing each other. There will be more of a top half of the table and bottom half of the table split, I think, especially if there isn't a second league in the north or a second league in the south. We'll have to see what happens there. It'll be really good for development of other clubs. So I know Hartlepool, they're a pretty smashing club in the northeast. They've had 3 teams entered into the northeast regional. So I wouldn't be too surprised if they entered a second team into Sheffield, because it's that little bit closer. And yeah, same with the south. I think it gives that opportunity for other clubs to enter because they're closer to play. My biggest concern about it is how it affects the fact that you've got 3 in relegation of a league of 10, or potential relegation out of a league of 10, and also I'll be interested to see how the playoffs go, because my fear about it is because what's happened in rugby, and the reason I'm bringing it up in rugby is rugby had this knockout system where if you're in the top 4, you have to win on aggregate of 2 games to get promoted in the final. And one team for 5 years straight finished top of the league and never got promoted. And that was just to get from one league to the one above. That's not even including 2 different leagues going against each other as well. So could be a really interesting fight for promotion and how that will work. But yeah, that's my thoughts. What are you guys' thoughts?
Overall, I'm really actually excited to see how it all pans out. I think it could be interesting for a lot of clubs, like you kind of mentioned, the balancing out of a lot more even squads. And I think actually overall the playoffs are a really good idea, and I think it'll be really good for squads that end up going into the playoffs. Although kind of heartbreaking, how if you're the loser of that format. It's a a really difficult one to swallow, but overall, I think it'll show where that gap is between the national leagues and the regional leagues, if there even is one. And I think as an overall concept, I think it'll be really interesting as somebody who won't be involved in it to see how it all plays out. Yeah, no, I'm actually really excited to see how it goes, and I think for the overall growth of the sport, I think it's really beneficial, and I think it'll help out a lot of different teams, especially having the regional leagues closer to your geographical location rather than having to go up to St. George's Park. I think it'll probably I think it could help grow the sport quite a bit. And it'll be interesting to see the day comes where it could, work out for the women as well to kind of have that system in place.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, obviously, structure change doesn't massively change the women's at all. So it'll be interesting to see how that like affects things going forward. Whether or not like I do see this being something that's going to massively grow the men's game. And so I'm a little bit worried that the gulf between the men's game and the women's game as far as quantity of players and quantity of leagues is just going to snowball even more. It's already very big, and it's obviously going to keep snowballing because it's that kind of increase that increases exponentially. And so even though the women's game is still growing and is getting bigger every year, it's a couple years behind, and so we have to keep comparing it to what men's league was a couple years ago instead. But no, for all the points you guys have mentioned, I think that it's mixed feelings about to be there about the new structure. I do think it's probably overall positive, but like all changes in dodgeball, it's always going to be an interesting pill to swallow. And from a player standpoint, as far as like individual fitness goes, I think the 3-match structure is going to be interesting to see how that impacts people. I think as an international player, there's a clear benefit from my point of view, which is that the international games moving to 2 times 20-minute halves in European format as well as in Worlds. I imagine the English format's going to stay as 2 times 15 for at least another season. So, that means if it's 2 times 15, that's like an hour and a half total games per league meet, which is only 10 minutes longer than 2 matches of Euros. So it's, as far as fitness goes, really good training for those of us who do compete at an international level, and for those who don't, it's the kind of fitness that you're going to need to have at international level as well. So it weirdly happens to line up quite well in that way, and I'm quite happy with that as a change. I think that's a necessary change. I think for everyone, we all just need to just get in shape, just get better.
Yeah. To reward the people that are actually watching the live stream, James, shout out to you. Do you think there'll be more or less foam next year, or a foam league? I mean, there currently is. There is a foam league. It is based on events that happen. So
the foam series, isn't
the
it?
foam series, yeah. So that does exist.
It's not,
but it's,
but it's not like he's edging towards, is it? He's talking about an actual proper league.
No, I know,
think it's
but
it's still a fair bit off. I think I do think that for there to be a foam league that would work well, you kind of need players to start deciding between whether they want to be foam or cloth, which at the moment there's just not enough foam to tie you into becoming a proper full-time foam player, if that makes sense. So I think you're still a fair whack off it. I think it'll still be like open events in my eyes. What?
Just James.
Oh, I just see you two going, no. I was like, what did I say that was wrong?
as evidence by league meets. But anyway, carry on, Zoe.
No, I agree. I'm not sure I agree completely with the concept of like players having to choose between foam and cloth, because like the same thing has been said before about mixed league, and I don't actually think that's true with mixed league either. I don't think you have to be one or the other. I think the issue for me at the moment, as someone who does actually play a bit of foam, when it's on offer, I will play foam. I've been to foam trainings. I've been to the GB one last time, and like, it's great. There's clearly people interested in it. But I think this year, especially, it felt as if a lot of the foam opens in the series were in very strange places. And that's not going to help grow the sport. Like, I'm sorry, if you want to grow the sport, look at what we used to do back in the day with cloth. And the reason why the sport was so big in the Midlands is because everything used to be run in the Midlands. And the reason it used to all be run in the Midlands was A, all the clubs are there, and B, the clubs that aren't there are equidistant from it, since it's the middle of the land. So if you're going to run foam events, maybe don't run them in the middle of absolutely nowhere where people are going to have to spend an entire weekend out to go and see it. And I think it's great, like I'm not complaining about things like Foam Opens being an island and stuff. Of course, that needs to happen as well because with like it's an island, but it's it would be nice to have accessible opens that are actually somewhere that we can get to, and I think it's unfair to judge the growth of the sport until it's getting that kind of support internally where it is being given slightly better venues, and more energy is being put into finding those kinds of venues for foam. I think you're right. I think there's not going to be a foam league anytime soon, and I think that the interest isn't 100% there, but more importantly, the interest isn't really there from leadership. It's not flowing top down. It's desperately trying to push bottom up. And realistically,
Yeah.
foam should grow in the UK. Like juniors play foam, so there's real reason for foam to grow as a sport now that juniors are starting to get into the adult area, and yet there doesn't seem to be any kind of acknowledgement of that or any kind of support for that. Which just all strikes me as odd. Like I love cloth. I am 100% cloth, as my primary version of the sport. But it does strike me as a little odd the way that foam is being treated in the UK at the moment. In by so many different sides. It's not just, I'm not like pointing fingers at anyone in particular. I'm just saying I think that there's a few problems there that aren't the fault of foam as a sport that I'm
Yeah.
stopping it from growing.
The
I
one
mean, sorry, I was just gonna say, name a sporting association which has managed two different versions of the sport simultaneously and allowed them to grow equally.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm talking about in terms of choosing between foam and cloth. If you're gonna play in two separate leagues, one for foam, one for cloth, and have 10 teams in both leagues, you're then gonna have to sacrifice another set of 6 or 9 weekends to play on top of that. You're going to have referees dedicated to refereeing the league as well. You're going to have to if you're going to also compete in like foam open events or cloth open events on top of that, with on top of like international events, regional events, like with so much going on, that's the reason why I think like in the long term, you're going to have players that are going to go down the cloth route and a foam route. Like it is a long way off of that. Do not get me wrong. Like, and obviously, players at the moment can play both. But I think in the long term, if you want to have a foam league and have foam as its own entity, you'll have to have kind of players being more selectful about whether they're going to be playing foam or cloth more.
One other super quick criticism that I will give to foam as its own version of the sport that I think will hold it back is the women's court thing. The fact that women's courts are differently sized than men's courts in foam, which isn't the case in cloth, obviously, is an interesting one when you're trying to grow the sport because, as Kath Thomas correctly pointed out at GB training last weekend, that's like the only women's court you can train on in the UK is at a GB training. We don't train on women's courts in trainings. Like, Bees runs foam courts pretty much every week on a Thursday session at the moment. That's not a women's court. That is a men's court size that the women will obviously play on as well because that is the default. And that's how society and sport and everything works, is that male becomes the default. And so that then creates issues as far as growing the women's side of the sport. It's going to be really, really hard to in any way convince women to play foam dodgeball when what they're training is not what they would ever be competing in. Like, that's just not very satisfying as a concept. And that is a problem that foam within its rule set has as far as growing it. So yeah, there are problems with foam that will make it hard to grow within the UK, and I think that is a really important one for me, is that, yeah, I'm not going to get to play on a women's foam court for I don't know how long now. I genuinely can't tell you the next time I get to play on a women's foam court. That's kind of ridiculous, and that's why I'm very against this concept of having different sized courts for different genders. I think it's ridiculous, and it will always be at the detriment of women's sports. I don't think you'd ever find a club running a women's court instead of a men's court if they had just one space, So,
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations,
That's
James,
I think
for bringing up the cloth foam debate We've done a whole episode on it. If you want to go
Probably
find out
will
our
at some
thoughts
point.
on cloth foam, there is it. But two quick questions we'll finish up with, and the next ones we'll bring over onto the next episode. There will be another episode. I'm almost certain of it. But yeah, we'll finish off with two more. What game is your biggest upset of the season result-wise, and why?
Oh, I have one that I would probably choose. Not that it had a big impact in the long run, but I think the Queens versus Derby result, gotta be up there for me. Literally, the team that turned out to be last place versus third, with some incredible sets throughout it. Yeah, I think that one was the biggest upset for me. I never seen that coming.
Yeah, I think there are a few that. Sorry,
There's that was just the one that first popped up to me.
Yeah, like when I was thinking about this question, I was sort of going through in my head what wants to stick out to me. I think given Spartans have lost one game this season in the men's, and they've lost to Storm, that has to go down as one of the biggest upsets. Like the fact that Storm, who finished fifth, got an upset at the very beginning of the season against the end up title winners who didn't drop a game after that. Mm-hmm. Similarly, I reckon Hartlepool beating White Tigers was the biggest red herring there ever was in the women's, because after that we just sort of wrote White Tigers off. But in hindsight, if you'd muddled up the order of the games and you looked at the results, that has to be one of the biggest upsets. Same with Crocs drawing to Wessex. That would also be one of the big ones in the women's game.
And Derby 2s against Wessex. Really, it's just Wessex. I feel like there's a credit that we should never ever let them forget.
Maybe like even Wessex men's 1s against Storm 2s the first time they played as well. Not to bring that one up again. But yeah, and maybe even arguably, some results in men's League 1 as well, with Sheriffs 2 beating Bees, or I'd say Leeds drawing to Spartans too, like based on the former results. I think it's quite there. But as for like the biggest upset that would have to be seen as an upset, I think I'm gonna have to lean towards Storm beating Spartans because of all the other results that happened. I think that's where I'll have to come to. But yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
There's a lot of good games though. But yeah, final question and we'll wrap it up. Only because this nicely wraps onto us wrapping it up. But I'll even put the closing scene up for us.
Oh my god, he's serious.
Oh wow, no, we're not going to do that because that's an absolute mess of a show.
I'm now.
Right, ignore that. I have no idea what's happened there. Anyway,
the source is your OBS rather than your camera. That's what it is.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but the final question is will there be a tips and tricks section of the podcast? Watch this space is probably what I'm going to say. We are very interested in doing more. I think this isn't going to be our final episode, but just to like review the season as a whole from our perspective, and you guys chime in and see what you think to say. But I think our objective this year was just to get the ball rolling. Like we wanted to be regular. We didn't want to meet a league meet. We wanted to make sure we got all the nationals involved in terms of men's and women's, and I think we've achieved that. Personally, graphics wise, we've done quite well at covering all of Bucks, mixed, and men's. We've missed a couple. I won't deny it.
I can't say we on that. That was 100% Nick, really.
I put so much effort into mocking
into the graphics. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's getting the ball rolling and making sure that there's a base that we can grow on for next year, because next year is going to be fucking hell for us, guys. Like if you hadn't figured, we're going from basically all leagues in one location that we just happen to be at between the three of us to three different locations, which is going to be potentially 4 if women's is in a different place as well. So good fucking luck in us covering that. But yeah, we start the bar low, and we'll build on it.
We're in discussions about how to organize everything and what we'll do in the meantime, and yeah, obviously because we've got a big gap between this and the
God, my voice is going. A big gap between this and the start of the next league. There's obviously going to be like a few opens. There's going to be, what is it, Euros in October?
Yeah, I was going to say that's the other thing. Euros is later again, so that's weird.
Yeah, which is what, 4 months, 5 months away to Euros. Like we've got time that we're going to take away to like think about what we want to be doing for content wise for the rest of the year. Plan out how the podcast is going to be run, whether we're going to be doing other types of stuff in the meantime. We've no idea. We're only discussing it. We just wanted to make it through to the end and make sure that we had an episode for every league meet. That was our objective. Considering this just started off as we'll see how it goes. And for folks to Nick doing a lot of the grunt work around the graphics for you guys, which I know a lot of you really enjoyed and looked up more than the official BD table, and loved to point out his mistakes, which was absolutely hilarious to get his response to that in the group chat. And the Zoe, the meme queen throughout the year, was absolutely incredible and built up a lot of followers for us because people absolutely loved it. And a shout out to you guys that interacted with us and listened to the podcast and gave us feedback. And it was always really nice that people came up and talked to us about it throughout the season and told us how much they enjoyed it and enjoyed, how much we went into, the tactical side of things and talked about stuff that, everybody else has always wanted to talk about with other people in the sport. And it's been a really exciting year, and I'm really excited to see how we move this forward. But like we said, we actually don't know yet how we're going to take it forward. But like I said, watch the space.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, you go, Nick. I was going to say that's a good place to end on, but clearly it's not.
No,
go,
it's
Nick.
not. Sorry, the last thing I was going to say wasn't going to be much, but it's fair to say there are definitely plans in the works for what we're going to do for next year. I haven't stopped talking about how much I want to talk about Uni League and everything that's happening. I know, shock horror. And especially with us being in North and South leagues next year, want to cover that, and even maybe even mixed. Who even knows? Let's sprinkle that fairy dust out there.
What's a mixed? Don't come for me. Don't come for me.
But generally speaking, just to say, like, if you are like, we do want to grow, we want to expand. I know it's been the three of us. We've had Alex and Lauren help out when availability's been a bit rough. Big shout out to them. So just want to say thanks to that. But we're not just a 3-person team. Obviously, we've kind of been leading it, but going forward, I think it's fair to say that if you are interested in helping out in some way, whether it's reporting on games that are happening, giving us a lowdown of some of the gossip, or whatever, or just taking a video recording of what's happened at League, whatever, and sending it through. Like, let us know what you're interested in doing, because between the three of us, there's only so much we can cover, especially seeing as we're all on the M62 at the moment. We are somewhat geographically bound, so anyone who wants to help out and get their thoughts on the podcast, or at least input on the podcast, let us know, because it'll be really good to hear from you guys. We are a community after all. Yeah, that was the last thing for me.
He literally stole the line I was going to end on.
I
guys planned about 2 minutes ago.
Dodgeball is a family.
No one's ever mentioned this before. No one's ever said this incredibly unique thought of ours, that actually we're a community and we're a family.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
it actually would be really exciting to get other people involved, especially as like we're not going to be able to go watch every match of every league meet. Like, that would be hundreds and hundreds of hours. We were lucky that everything was in one meet, and if we were there, we were able to catch different games at different points and follow along in a certain way. I used to, like, whenever I was there, I would sit in like the back of the benches near where the commentary was happening, to like be able to swivel between all 4 matches at the same time if I wasn't commentating and stuff like that. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to go for the last few months. So I've just been relying on footage to be posted on YouTube and watching the streams and stuff like that. Shout out to Dodgeball Central, by the way, for making my life a lot easier, making it possible for me to come onto the podcast to actually discuss matches. Otherwise, I would have been screwed. So yeah, please do get in touch. We're really keen to cover as much as we can, but obviously the three of us only have so much time. So if anybody is keen to get involved, get in touch. We're actually really excited to try and grow this and expand it further. And for those of you that want us to talk about leagues internationally, if you want to get in touch about talking about other stuff like that, we can see what we can do during this break. And it is something we're looking to get into, if but obviously time wise we have to try and plan things out in advance. So we just love dodgeball, okay? we really want to try and see what we can do with this little group.
Yeah, definitely. And there may even be a Discord coming, so hopefully that will help with everything as well. But we need to sort stuff out. But on that note, let's end it. It's been a great season, and see you on the next pod.